Vance.
Here.
Councilmember Vance will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Y'all stand, please.
What did he say?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He will also render invocation.
Let us pray. Spirit of the living God, we come to you again as humbly as we know how to give you honor, Father, in our work for this community. Father, let our work be pleasing in your sight. Guide our minds to be focused on the things that will be uplifting and in proper character for the people of this town of Garner. Father, we ask that you bless the council and bless all individuals who've gathered here for this time, and those who could not be here, bless them as well. And we give you all the praise and all the honor. And it's in your most precious Son, Jesus Christ's name I pray, and we all say,
Amen. Okay, next on the agenda is petitions and comments. That is time on the agenda for anyone who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. If you wish to address the council, come to the podium, state your name and address. Okey-doke, adoption of the agenda.
I move adoption of the agenda.
I would like
Unless there's a
to-
closed
excuse-
session, is that right?
Well, closed session, I think we're going to be adding a closed session for the town attorney, but I'd like to add a brief session under presentations. And Bill can give you the
We
citing.
need to add a couple closed sessions if we can, under GS 143, 31811A3, discuss potential litigation with attorney, and under A5 to discuss some parameters of real estate negotiation.
So I'll move with those additions to be added, that we adopt the agenda as is presented.
Second. Motion second, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Presentation. Roger, what are you going to do?
Yes, Mayor Williams, Town Council, I would like to take this time to introduce a couple of new employees that just recently joined our staff. First is Leah Harrison. Stand for a moment. She joined us on June the 17th, and she came from Fayetteville, the city of Fayetteville, where she was there for about 4 years as an engineering specialist, and she's worked in a variety of areas, including United States Bureau of Reclamation as a civil engineer and contract manager, and so we're glad to have her as our assistant town engineer. Thanks for being here, Leah.
Awesome.
And then next is our finance director, who started last week, and his name is David Beck, and he joins us. He previously came from Vance County. He has over 14 years of finance experience in the field. He's worked in other places like Davie County, and he holds a bachelor degree in accounting from NC State and a master in science in accounting from East Carolina University, so glad to have him with us. And to fill those very two important roles in the leadership team. So,
Welcome, y'all. Okay, there are 5 items on the consent agenda. What's the president of the council?
I'd like to, I can move to approve all except, let me get to the right place. Item number 4, and I just want a matter of clarification on it, so I'll move to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
On item 4, it's the Garner Parks and Garner Recreation Center landscaping agreement. Don't quarrel over the scope, the cost. It's been amended from our last meeting. The one thing that just triggered my my thinking is we amending. We have a contract with Norris for landscaping that's not with the general contractor. So how do we wind up with a separate contract that's doing work on site of the general contract? I thought we wouldn't. My logic would have been we would have been doing business and executing a contract with the general. I'm not saying we can't. Can you give us any background on that?
Yes, sir. When the contract for the rec center originally did include the landscaping,
And council may remember that there was some confusion with the allowance of CDBG funds that were allocated by Wake County for the rec center. And it was determined after the project was bid that we had not met some of the qualifications to be able to use the funds in the manner that we had planned to. So our former town engineer proposed that we pull the landscaping contract out of about the right amount that we could then bid it to meet the qualifications for the CDBG funding. We got that approved by Wake County. We went ahead with the bid, and then after the landscaping was bid separately, Wake County came back with a clarification from HUD that provides the funding and denied our use of that bid for that. So Mr. Chalk did a valiant effort to try to salvage that funding, and he ended up spending a lot of extra time trying to make that work, and only for us to find out later that Wake County got additional guidance and is not letting us use the funding in that way. So we now have a separate contract for the landscaping.
Thank you, John. Move to approve item 4.
Second.
Other discussion, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing, David Bamford, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, this one just, let's see.
Let me open this.
This one doesn't involve any special quasi-judicial conversation, so I'll just let you call the meeting, call the hearing open.
Good, David.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This is a general use rezoning request. The property is at 200 Britt Valley Road. The case number is Z1904. The size of the property is 5.5 acres. The request is to rezone from R20 single family to R40 single family. The schedule for this case, the public hearing is tonight, and then it would move to the Planning Commission at their meeting on August the 19th, and then come back to council for a decision at your meeting on September the 2nd. This is a vicinity map of the rezoning site. 1010 Road is located to the south, and this site is in between Benson Road, which is located to the east, running north and south, and Crowder Road on the west side. And this tract is at the end of Britt Valley Road, and Britt Valley Road is a private street. And this area is in Garner's ETJ. It's not inside the town limits. And this is a map showing the boundary of the rezoning site. It's outlined in orange. And again, this is 5.5 acres. This is a zoning map of this area. The predominant zoning in this area is residential 20. There is a lot zoned RMH, or residential manufactured home, located at the corner of Montecito Drive and 1010 Road. As far as land use goes, the property directly to the north, I believe, is vacant, undeveloped, and the property directly to the west is vacant, undeveloped, and the properties to the east and south are single family. This is a list of zoning cases from our database in this area of Garner. The oldest case we have on file is from 1994, and the most recent case was from 2018. And that case was over off of Jordan Road. It was rezoned from community retail to neighborhood office. And the property that's zone RMH in this vicinity was done in 1998. So that's the case for that site. The existing zoning is residential 20, and this is single family district that allows lots of at least 20,000 square feet in area. And this is a gross density of around 2.17 units per acre. Under the R20 zoning district, accessory detached buildings have a size limitation up to 50% the size, or 50% of the heated square footage of the home. The requested zoning classification is residential 40, And this allows lots of at least 40,000 square feet in size, and the density is around 1.08 units per acre. Under the R40 zoning district, there is no size limitation on an accessory building. However, it must meet the setbacks. And it is our understanding that this is the primary reason for this request, is the property owner would like to have an accessory detached building that is larger than what would be permissible in the R20 zoning district. This table shows a comparison between the existing and proposed zoning. The uses highlighted in green would be uses that would be added to the list of permissible uses. So the uses in green are not allowed currently in the R20 zoning district. And this is the continuation of the permissible uses. Again, the uses in green would be permissible in R40. They are not currently permissible in R20. The Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan shows this area as low-density residential, and this is primarily because there's no water and sewer in this area of Garner at this time. The low-density residential designation recommends residential uses less than 2.5 units an acre. And Garner's R40 and R20 zoning districts would fit within this low-density residential category. This request seeks to rezone the site from R20 to R40, and this request is consistent with the Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan designation of low-density residential. We will provide a recommendation to the Plan Commission after a meeting on August the 19th. And after conducting the public hearing tonight, we recommend that this case be referred to the next Planning Commission meeting on August the 19th. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The property owner is here also to answer any questions.
Does council have questions?
David, that's perfect. Could you tell us a little bit about the housing in the area? I know you mentioned one particular lot, but what kind of housing do we have in that area?
We have primarily single-family, stick-built homes. The homes on this particular street, I don't know the square footage, but I believe they're, I'm guessing probably in the 1,800 to 2,000 square foot heated range. There is a single-family subdivision directly to the east on Montecito Drive. I believe that was developed under our zoning probably maybe 18, 20 years ago, if I remember. There are no mobile home parks that I'm aware of in this area, but there may be some individual manufactured homes scattered along 1010 Road.
So this has this been in our jurisdiction for a while?
Yes, sir. It's been in our jurisdiction since 1988. So our ETJ expansion in 2017 included other areas, so this was already in our jurisdiction.
The reason I asked was to establish the fact that most of them are stick-built homes in the vicinity, and this particular request is somewhat of a slight precedent-setting issue, which is one of two such issues tonight before us, and I draw your attention to the. If you would, David, pull up the one that's there you go, right there. That under the current zoning, R20, the double-wide manufactured home, Class A, is not permitted. It would be permitted under the proposed zoning. And if we're proposing an outside building in support of the house, I would question the need for the allowance of double-wide manufactured home. I question the necessity of this, and I'd love to see it eliminated. And when it's appropriate time, I'd love for the owner to to talk to us a little bit about their needs and see if there's a, give us the reason for including this.
Sure, I'll give you one additional piece of information. There is currently an active building permit on this lot. This is actually a picture of the rezoning sign, but the house that's under construction is in the background. So we do have an active building permit for a residential stick-built home. So this request primarily is trying to deal with the future addition of an accessory building that's larger than 50% the size of the home.
I got that. Is it necessary to include this provision, since we have the option? Is it necessary to include the provision that a double-wide manufactured home would be allowed on that site?
That is one of the permissible uses in R40. That's not the.
Do we have the authority to remove it from that as a part of the approval process?
Not under a conditional zoning request. All permissible uses would be theoretically allowed. So a conditional application really is the only tool to restrict out uses. And a conditional application requires a site plan, and this request does not include a site plan. It's just a request to allow the construction of an accessory building that's larger than what's allowed in R20.
I'm sure there's rhyme or reason as to why certain things are included, but I'm a little intrigued. I think to follow up on Mr. Kennedy's points here, you know, pubs and lodges are on there. I'm intrigued as to why that one's there as opposed to any number of other things here. But
those are permissible with a special use permit, so that would have to go through a public hearing.
That was a few, you gotta be a whole lot more worried about solar farms than I would be worried about either one of those two uses. Let's be honest. I was much more concerned about the solar farms than I would either a double wide or a club and lodge. Good gosh.
well, I'm intrigued by
They're
why those are
ugly, and we
included.
don't know who may clean them up one day. At least with a club or lodge or a double wide or a modular home or a single family detached, someone's gonna have some ownership and someone's gonna live there. It's not gonna be a solar farm that somebody may walk away from one day.
This is the same thing as going to be the next one. You put it there, it stays with the property. Open the door.
But everything out there at Buck is zoned R40. It's all around it's zoned R40. I mean, we've approved homes on Neal's Branch Road right up here. We've approved all those. I was showing you where you've done it too. You've been on it. We've approved those homes. It's all zoned R40 out there. There's R20 and there's R40 all surrounding it too.
Explain this to us again. So if it's left this way and at a later date, either the applicant now or a subsequent owner comes back to us and says, by the way, I looked up the zoning and I can put a double wide on there. Can they go to your office and staff just authorize permit, go do it?
If the property was subdivided, they could put another dwelling unit on that lot. As long as it's 1 5.5 acre tract and it has the house that's under construction, they cannot add another dwelling unit on the same lot. So the property would have to be subdivided first, which is a plat review process at staff level, and then they could come in with a building permit for a.
And it would never come back to us?
That is correct.
I'll wait to hear from the applicant.
Okay, this is a public hearing. We're going to hear from the applicant.
Thank you for your time tonight, and I appreciate your concerns. I know I can assure you I have no intentions of putting a double wide, a solar farm, or any of those other things that are allowed in R40, but I also understand your concerns about if somebody owns it after me one day. I will tell you that the primary reason, as Mr. Bamford said, that we were requesting to move to R40 is the accessory building stipulation. This was family land that was owned by my grandfather. There are currently 3 very old barns on the property that are 60, 70 years old that are kind of counting, as I was told, as already accessory buildings. And so I couldn't even build a tool shed right now because of those existing barns that are not in the greatest of shape. And we wanted to keep them for ambiance, if nothing else. These were barns that my grandfather built back in the 30s and 40s, and so we like having them on the property, but they're of minimal use to us. So under the R20 designation, of course, as I said, I could not even build any accessory building. So we wanted to get to R40 because we would like to in the future, probably not even this year. As I said, as Mr. Bamford said, we're building our home. We hope to have the certificate of occupancy for that maybe as early as next week. We're looking forward to actually living on the property. And sometime in the near future, we would like to build another accessory building, and we're limited by that right now. We have a family RV, and we've actually already built an RV pad on the lot that was permitted through the town. And that is where actually we want to put the future accessory building and actually build a cover over that, and also a garage area where we can, more of a concrete pad workshop area, because I wouldn't even want to operate a power tool in my existing barns right now. 70-year-old wood with a good spark would go up pretty quickly. And so the accessory building we would want to build would cover the existing RV pad that's already been built and permitted, and also have a garage area, and then an additional some square footage added to that as well. And as I said, under the current R20, our hands are tied as far as building anything, I guess, unless we either tore down the barns or unless the barns were, I guess, grandfathered in and not counted as accessory building square footage, but I haven't been told that is an option. But I'll be glad to answer any more questions you might have.
I'll go back to David then. Thank you for your explanation.
You're welcome.
That's good. You've told us what you intend to do, but I want to find out how much problem there is to exclude this and without putting you through a lot of duress.
I understand. I would be more than willing to sign something saying I do not intend to put a mobile home or any of those other things you're concerned about, at least while I own the property. I don't know if that helps or not, but as I understand, if I no longer own the property 30, 40, 50 years from now, though I do pray that this is my last move, and I do not intend to go anywhere once we're in this house, but I do understand the concern.
I appreciate your explanation as well. Slightly unlike Mr. Singleton, I don't think a solar farm is a bad thing to consider. Was there a particular reason that was incorporated into permissible items on the property?
That's allowed in R40. That wasn't his choice. That's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
That's all staff. That's what's allowed in the comprehensive plan, the UDO. Not he didn't come up with the solar farm.
I do not intend to build a solar farm. I think that was just pointing out that is something that is allowable under R40, but not something I intend to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions of the applicant? How about the audience? Anybody want to speak?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll close the public
Got a
hearing.
question for David. Isn't this similar to what we did recently on Old Stage Road? Where the gentleman had the R40?
Yes, sir. We had a similar case on Maxwell Drive and also Old Stage Road. It was the same
Thing.
Same request. They wanted an accessory garage building that was more than 50% the size of the house.
Approved both of
In
those.
those cases, the house was already there.
Right.
In this case, the house is under construction.
But we had to get approval because the building was going to be larger than 50% of the square footage of the home, correct?
That is correct.
And both of those were approved, weren't they?
Those were approved.
Thank you.
And he also told us hang on please, David. So he also told us that what he planned to do with it was a garage, and so we had, however, we have also been enlightened with future requests, and we seem to have a rash now of trying to regress towards mobile homes, and that may be a little bit grandstanding, but that's my prerogative to grandstand every now and then, which is frequent. But let me ask you, how about what kind of effort does it take to remove this?
So there's really two options. One option would be a text amendment. And this would apply for all R40 zonings everywhere. The second option would be to convert this request into a conditional use application. Instead of we could use a plot plan as the site plan, showing the plot plan of the house under construction plus a proposed footprint for the accessory building, and start over in the process where in that process it would go to planning commission first, then we would have the public hearing at the end. So that option would be to convert this general use into a conditional use where the applicant would remove uses from being permissible.
That's something that he could do as, I'll say, as a layman, or has he got to have a registered land surveyor, or has he got to have an engineer, or got to have a landscape architect? Has he got to go through the professional route, or can he do it
He would
on
not
his
have to
kitchen table?
have a typical full set of plans. I believe the building permit plot plan would be sufficient for what he's doing. And it really wouldn't probably delay much time. We could, the first meeting he would go to would be planning commission. So it may be delayed a month, but no more than that.
Sir, do you mind working with the planning department along those lines?
I'm open to that suggestion.
Good. Thank you. Got somebody else that wants to speak, I think.
So my name is Julie Bucher. I live at 140 Britt Valley, which is the lot that is directly beneath that. I do think to the question earlier of what is the square footage of the houses around, I think the square footage of the houses around is more consistent with 3,000 to 4,500 square foot. I know our house is 4,300 square foot, so I think, and the neighbors around us are fairly consistent. One of the questions that I had, I think on that list, David, there was, I was actually more interested in the cell tower one. And when we're talking about some of these properties that have been rezoned to R40, my question is, were those on a private road? Because we are the beneficiary of Scott's grandfather's property as well, because we were here several years ago asking for a recombination. I guess we broke up some land on that private road, and it was a dirt road. And when they split the land so that into the two sections that are there, we had to pay, each one of us living on the road had to pay our share of that private road. And so to me, when we get into things like solar farms and cell towers and things like that, any damage done to that road by that additional traffic, which is not what we thought we were getting ourselves into, we have to pay the repairs of that as a group. Like, all of us have to contribute to that. So as we're looking at some of these other areas that have been rezoned R40, my question is, were they on a private road where the neighbors bear part of the responsibility? And I agree that, you know, Scott had his word that he would not embark down any of these, but as we know, a year from now, the owners could be different there, and all of this conversation was well intended, but here we are whether it be a double wide or a cell tower and all that traffic, the wear and tear on the road would be ours to bear. So I guess my question is, were those other examples that were listed private road examples or public road examples?
I mean, the other two that we approved recently, they were both in the yards already existed. There was not a private road, it was a driveway. It's a driveway into their home,
So
private
I guess,
driveway.
to me, if we go back and look at that plot plan, this is a little different from other ones that you have approved for this broad classification of R40, because any additional traffic, unintended by Scott and his family, but by future users, if they take advantage of any of those new R40 clauses, the wear and tear on the road is out of our pocket. It's not out of Town of Garner's pocket. So I think that might be a difference here.
Mr. Mayor, could I explain to her what happened before she came up? It might make her feel better about this. Ma'am, the conversation that took place between the council and the applicant was to the effect that he's going to retool this and come back and seek something called conditional use zoning, in which he will strike out those offending things and just, you know, you'll be getting what you want.
So then it would be still R20, or it would be R40 with a bunch of conditions?
R40, but deleting telecommunications tower, deleting major utilities,
All of
deleting,
those.
you know, those
Okay.
things, so we can get his building.
Okay, may I ask
Yes.
another question?
Yeah.
So my sister lives at 130 Britt Valley, the one that's directly beneath us. And her husband went to the emergency room today, so she cannot be here. But her question was going to be, when she was in a similar situation herself several years ago, they wanted to build an outbuilding as well. And she was not able to build what they wanted because they had an intention of putting, they were going to build a garage and they wanted to put a shower and a bathroom in the garage. And that was not within the permission because of the single family use. I think her concern was that this RV is co-owned, or I'm not positive of the ownership, but there's definitely some ownership of an additional adults. And so if this is approved for an outbuilding, if there's an additional request that comes forward for the in-laws who own at least part of the RV to add, you know, some type of kitchen, some type of bathroom, if the accessory building gets grandfathered in here or conditionaled in or asterisked in or whatever we're talking about there, will there be another round of discussions to talk about whether that building then can be enhanced further? Because I feel like we're teetering on the edge of, is it really still single family, or are there two families living in this area? So with the proposal, Mr. Anderson, that you were just describing, if the building was intended to be enhanced one step further, would that cause another hearing?
The accessory building cannot be a separate dwelling unit. We've had conversations with the building inspector, and as long as it does not have a kitchen, then we would not consider it. If they had a bedroom and bathroom above the accessory structure on the second floor, as long as it didn't have a kitchen, it wouldn't really meet the definition of a separate dwelling unit.
Okay, so there can be a bedroom and a bathroom, but no kitchen, and the RV can provide the kitchen facilities. So basically, with the approval of that accessory building, it could be arguably more than single family, but not technically more than single family, and that would still be within the rules. Is that what I'm understanding?
I don't have any information on an RV. I mean, we would just consider that personal property like a boat. I mean,
Yeah, I just think that when the
have any-
RV provides kitchen facilities, it is a bit blurry. So I'm just trying to understand, even with the proposal, the way that Mr. Anderson has described it, then the accessory building can have all of the amenities described, just not a kitchen, and the RV can provide the kitchen, and that's within the rules. I just want to understand what it is that is being approved, so that when it's approved, we're all clear as the neighbors of what the council's intentions were.
I would make a suggestion, that you schedule a meet with Mr. Banford, Mr. Treesburg, and talk with them one-on-one.
Okay.
That would be much easier, much better to explain what can and cannot be done, because we're not going to vote on anything tonight. I think
Okay.
that would work much easier.
Great.
And it might answer your questions better.
Perfect, thank you.
I think that would be, because with the conditional zoning, I think you'll see where the applicant's going to narrow some things down, and maybe you can understand better. I think it would be better, because we're not going to decide anything tonight. So I think talking with them, and since this is going to push us back a month, that gives you plenty of time maybe to get your
And when
all
we
your
come back in
questions answered.
September, if it's approval, then it'll be very clear at that time.
But I would hope
rules.
that you would meet with them before, I mean.
No, I
yeah,
will, but I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying, at that point, it'll be clear when it's approved, the requirements of.
Yes, ma'am. It would be spelled, it'd be spelled out in writing. Yes, ma'am. The
Perfect.
conditions. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Bill, we need to close the public hearing and start over. Is that what we're doing?
Oh, yeah, he's going to have to go back and retool his application, so just vote to table it or something, and then we can just let the other one take its place.
It's going to be referred to the planning commission. and-
Anyway, right,
Anyhow,
right,
so
that works.
We just table it.
No, refer to the planning commission. He'll have time to get it done.
Right, right.
Let's close the public hearing and we deal with this other matter. So it starts over as a new request?
No, it'll go to planning commission, not in August, not next week, but not in August, but probably September.
Right, as of right now, I do not know what the schedule will be. The applicant would have to meet with us, the property owner, fill out a new form for the conditional rezoning, strike out some of the permissible uses in R40, provide a plot plan, something that we can use as a site plan, and then we would rewrite our staff report and then send that to planning commission. Do you want to?
It would be a new application. The difference is why we say it may not delay any time is that the general rezoning starts with you, goes to planning commission, and then comes back to you. It's a 3-step process, whereas the conditional is just a 2-step process that starts right away with planning commission. So either way, if we had stuck with this or if we flip it to the conditional, still on the same time frame. As long as we get together this week, we still have enough time to do the public. We have the public hearing notice because you'll actually have a public hearing when it comes back to you under the conditional process. So we're okay with time.
Have one more shot at this. Mr. Reagan, I think our whole position is this. We want you to be able to do what you want to do. We're trying to protect long-term interest, but don't want undue burden on you. And I hope things can, and I trust things from what staff has said, is they'll work with you and to achieve your desired outcome and a desired outcome for the town. Thank you.
Okay, next is the Z1903 general use rezoning. East Garner Road, David Banford.
This is also a general use zoning request. The public hearing for this case was held back on May the 21st and went to Planning Commission on June the 17th. And they did recommend approval of this request. This went to Town Council at the July 1st meeting where there was discussion and concern and it was tabled. And it is now back for you tonight for a decision. This request has been modified. The original request was to rezone 4.5 acres, and this request is to rezone .813. And the reason for that acreage is the rezoning site was originally 2 pieces of property, and this request is just to rezone the smallest of the 2. And the request is to rezone from R20 to RMH, which is residential manufactured home. This is a vicinity of the site. It's on East Garner Road, in between Auburn Nightdale Road and Rock Quarry Road. It's about 0.6 mile east of the intersection of East Garner and Auburn Nightdale Road. And the site is located on the south side of East Garner, and the property backs up directly to the railroad. The original request is the map on the right. It was to rezone 4.5 acres. This request is to rezone the smallest tract of the two, .813. The original rezoning request was to rezone from R40 and R20 to RMH. This request is to only rezone from R20 to RMH. The remaining 3.5 acres will remain R40 under this request. This is a table comparing the existing zoning and the proposed zoning. There's difference in the dimensional requirements, minimum lot size, minimum lot width, and front and rear yard setbacks. This table shows the permissible uses, what would be eliminated and what would be added under this request. Going from R20 to RMH would allow individual manufactured homes, Class A, which is double wide, with certain standards and length to width ratios and permanent foundation. It would allow a manufactured home Class B, which is a double wide, without those additional standards, and also a single wide, which is a Class C. While manufactured home parks and subdivisions are permissible in RMH, UDO Article 6.6A has a minimum acreage of 3 acres for any mobile home park or subdivision development. So this .813 site would, if this was approved, it would allow an individual stick-built house, modular house, Class A, B, or C manufactured home. The lot is too small for a mobile home park or mobile home subdivision.
So only one single unit can go there, correct?
That's my opinion based on Wake County's well and septic requirements. The uses highlighted in pink would be the uses that would no longer be permissible on this individual lot. That would include the group homes, schools, and agricultural uses. The Garner Forward Plan has this site designated as low-density residential. However, technically, the UDO allows lots up down to 5,000 square feet with water and sewer, and 10,000 square feet without water and sewer. Again, staff's opinion, without water and sewer, this lot could probably just support one dwelling unit. An amendment to the Garner Forward Plan would be required to redesignate it from low density to medium density residential. On the north side of East Garner, we have some medium density designation as well as mixed density and high density. And these designations were put in place with the future 540 that will go through directly east of this site in this area. And that would, there would be an interchange at Rock Quarry Road with the 540. So this future high density and mixed density designations was put in place for that future development, even though that area currently does not have any water and sewer right now. This request seeks to rezone from R20 to RMH. This is a general use rezoning request. It's not consistent with the Garner Forward Plan's density recommendations, so a plan amendment to medium density would be needed. However, the request is consistent with the surrounding land uses and zonings in this area. There are mobile homes and manufactured homes in this area, as well as stick-built homes. The zonings in this area are R20, R40, and there's some RMH zoning to the east of this site. And page 63 in your packet is the motion worksheet, and staff's recommendation is highlighted below, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
But once again, basically, this is only one unit can go there, basically, because it's going to be on septic.
That's my opinion, yes, sir.
And even if you, I mean, one day, you know, with the interchange out there when 540 gets built in our lifetime, water and sewer could be across from there. And the previous request, if water and sewer was allowable for the whole property, could support 16 to 32 units.
Theoretically.
Theoretically, yes. But again, this is basically just taking the smallest parcel for one unit. Basically, that's what's been requested. Okay. Which eliminates the 4, which was talked about last time, 4 to 16, which could possibly go there at our last meeting on the whole general request.
Right, there was concern about the potential for a mobile home park, which
Right.
is permissible on lots 3 acres or more in size, and this lot is.
Eliminates that because it's less than 3 acres. Okay.
David, have you, you may not have been here, but you've seen a lot of requests come through and you've seen a lot of records reviewing items in your tenure. You probably have more tenure than anybody else does on staff or in the planning department. When was the last time we approved a mobile home park that allowed single-wide mobile homes? Or single-wide dwelling, single-wide trailer, period?
The last one that I remember was probably done in the late 90s. That was where Bingham Station is right now. I believe that was rezoned to RMH and was approved for a mobile home park. We have had some individual RMH zonings on individual lots. We had one on 1010 Road near the previous case that was done in 1998. We've had a couple off of Hebron Church Road near White Oak Road, individual lots, but the last one that was a large site for a mobile home park, I believe, was I think it might have had Mahler's in the name, if I remember, but it's where Bingham Station is now.
About 20 years ago.
It one a little more recent than that, maybe 15 years ago, is David said off Ackerman, because I remember the gentleman, he was a customer at Hudson's, that's how I remember who it was, and he got it rezoned because he split the land up with his family. He's since passed away, but he split it up so we could put 2 units there instead of 1. That was probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. But the reason we're seeing this is because we extended the ETJ and changed the zoning. That's why you're seeing these things that used to be R40, now our classification changed things to R20. That's why you're seeing this stuff.
I agree, but we requested an extension of our ETJ. We were granted that ETJ extension. We were granted that jurisdiction, and along with that comes a significant responsibility for Garner's future and how it's developed. And what we do today can certainly have an impact on what can happen in the very near future. I will say it as low key as I can, but if we had a local newspaper that was still operating, tomorrow morning, if we were to approve this, tomorrow morning, the banner headline would be, Garner approves its first single-wide mobile home in 20 years. And what kind of signal does that say when we are struggling to raise the value of homes? We've seen it through the budget process and where we stand in the county. And it's not contingent on this one little place, but this sets a precedent that I think we need to think about, and how Garner is viewed by the next person that hears about it and wants to buy in Garner. They just approved mobile homes. What were they thinking? That's my concern.
We do know this is not the town limits. I know you know that. And you know you just lobbed me a big old fat softball to swing at for you.
No, sir.
Yes,
People are
sir,
going to
you
look
did.
all around. Go ahead and hit it.
Go
But
ahead.
people are going to look at it all
Back in May,
around.
on a 4-to-1 vote, Y'all approved the 72 unit apartment complex on 6.24 acres right across from Pine Winds. That's affordable housing that is rent assisted by Wake County. So if you want to talk about looking at the future, don't bring one trailer in here when you approve 72 units. That I think you realize afterwards that you might have wished you had a second chance at that vote.
That may be true, but it doesn't mean I got to make the same mistake twice.
You're talking about one unit on 0.8 acres that's not going to be in Garner's town limit for a long time.
That's fine.
David, what is the intended use for the remainder of that site?
I do not know. The property owner is here if you have any questions. It's my understanding that he's trying to sell it, and the rezoning on that portion would provide flexibility for a new buyer to do stick-built, modular, or manufactured homes on the lot. I'm not aware of any specific plans.
Kilgore's here.
Existing zoning, well, the previous zoning was R40, correct?
The larger of the two tracks is zone R40, which does allow double-wide manufactured
Currently.
homes and stick-built and modular.
All
Currently.
that's allowed currently, right?
Currently.
It is allowed currently, and
Yes.
the requested zoning is a down zoning, no matter how we want to describe it. And listen, when we leave here tonight, we will have made a decision. We move on. There's other things coming down the road, but this is a critical point, the way we view things down the road for Garner.
And also, if 540 comes through and people do high and low density across the road, somebody will buy that up in a heartbeat and develop something else there. But you got to remember, that's a narrow strip lane that backs up to the railroad. So, I mean, just because you approve it tonight doesn't mean in 10 years, as you say, if something's across the street, somebody won't buy it and put something else there in a heartbeat.
That's exactly right. And look at the narrow strips of land along Timber Drive where they put in nice professional office buildings. It certainly can happen.
It can, that's right.
Another
But in the
question.
meantime,
Am I correct in thinking that theoretically this applicant could come back and ask for rezoning for other small pieces of this parcel as time goes on?
Are you talking about the larger?
A larger, yes.
That's possible for any site in town.
But again, there are numerous uses already allowed in R40. Single family, residential, double wide, modular home, the clubs and lodges, all the other things are already allowed.
and if we approve it and they come back and request rezoning on the adjacent property, they got a ready precedent and said, but you allowed me right next door. Allow me to do it
But you
again.
can, but he can already put double wides there.
I can't stop that. I'm not gonna stop him. And I think that he can put double wide on this
For a group of
side.
people up here who raise hell about affordable housing, y'all sure are trying to defeat the purpose, aren't you? And y'all do. You said, we need to have affordable housing. We should be affordable housing. We need to be a partner. And you got one unit for one house for somebody to have some affordable housing, and you're raising teetotal holy Cain about it. It's an odd mix, that's funny. We go around the big circle all the time. I know we're entertaining y'all out there. God bless America. You sit here and have a meeting and talk about having it, and then some guy wants to do one unit. If he want, the reason we got to this is because at the last meeting, we all were concerned that you could put 4 to 16 units out there. None of us wanted to see that. So he came back in what is a reasonable request to do one. Again, he can put them on both sides. He can put them on sides right now. He can put on the R40. They can already do that. He can put modular homes in the R20 beside. That's not his land. It's one piece of property for one land way away from Garner. That's not going to be in Garner's limits for a long time. Not till 540 comes and the land across gets there. And gosh, we hope we live to see that.
Ray, I suggested a tabling it last time to allow time to rethink it and perhaps come back and say, forget this, and I can go with the double wide and resolve this issue. And I was willing to give some time for that rather than make a motion to deny, which I'll do tonight unless somebody goes ahead and says motion to approve.
So just explain to me this. What's the difference in something being twice as wide? I mean, that's all it is. All you're doing is you're just eliminating it because it's a single wide. If it's a double wide, you'd be fine with it. That's just what you said.
The double wide is allowed
Right.
now,
Exactly.
and I'm not denying him what he can do on the property now.
Right.
But I'm not going to, and everybody else can vote for it, which is fine. But I'm not going to intentionally downzone Garner, downzone land when we need to be. We faced this issue with Garner having some of the lowest valued housing in Wake County. And it would seem that we're taking a step to go even lower, although by a very minuscule amount, and it's not what the value of this one mobile home will lower it by. It's the image, it's the precedent, it's the thought and how people view it. It's not.
Well,
That's my point.
Then I go back to the May 6th meeting when you all approved the assisted affordable housing apartments in. This is not in the town limits, that is. This is not going to affect, when they look at the average home price in the town limits of Garner, this is not going to affect that because it's not the corporate limits.
Can anybody, lest we think this is a two-way conversation between Mr. Singles and Mr. Kennedy, and I appreciate the conversation there. I know when we first had this come before us, there was a concern expressed by a property owner out there having to do with tax values and what impact this would have. At least one person, or maybe more, expressed that concern. I'm not sure if anybody's been able to address that specifically, or is that just a perceived sort of concern? Is that a question we can't answer right here now?
I don't believe so. I don't have any information on that, what it would do or not do to property values or anything like that. I don't have any data or information.
Okay.
There are older units out there that are in far worse shape than what will probably be I'm assuming a relatively new unit, may not be brand new. It sure wouldn't affect it any worse than what's out there. Or any part of town that you would have. As we know, we hear property values of often in Wake County, it's almost impossible to make property values go down. Go out to Durant Road where there was a trash, it used to be the solid waste dump. And look what's out there now, $400,000 and $500,000 homes and a park that's on top of the dump. So, I mean, it's just really, if a dump won't drive property values down, I don't think anything else is going to.
Can we hear from property owners in the neighborhood as well?
I wanted to do that too, and I would allow that, although we've had our public hearing. But if you would like to make comment, come to the podium, make your comments. Thank you, David.
Do we need to reopen the public hearing? Because we closed the public hearing, but don't we just need to reopen it?
Probably ought to, if they're going to comment. Okay, we'll make this a public hearing. If you wish to make comment, come forward.
Off the beaten track, I'm Linda Powell, been a realtor in Garner for 30-plus years. So I will address values in my opinion. And again, it's going to be my opinion. I really wanted to thank the board. What you do in the time that you give to make these decisions, solid decisions, is appreciated, most especially by the local realtors. I have this really neat 3 pages, but you two have addressed so much, and if it's okay, I'd kind of like to readdress that. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. A single-wide mobile home is going to be personal property. You know, do you have a Cadillac that's worth $35,000, $55,000, or do you have a Volkswagen that's worth $500? My point is, the town of Garner needs to rise above where we've been over the last 30 years. This gentleman would like to have a raise. This gentleman cannot get a raise. The fire department cannot get a raise. They cannot get a new truck and new tires if we don't get the values up so that the tax dollars come in.
We just had this discussion last night. In a meeting?
I was not there, I'm
No,
sorry.
it wasn't. It was a closed meeting.
My point
We had
is
that.
that in order to avoid a tax increase, raise the values. Raise the values. That way, you don't have to pay more for your nice home over here. This man can balance it out. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, but this person won't be paying Town of Garner taxes because it's not the Town of Garner corporate limits.
That's right. But you get so much from the county, right? Okay.
Ma'am, the county taxes.
You don't get any, but you're going to go out there and take this property one day. You're giving us a service now. The police come that far now.
It's the ETJ and where there's property that's in the corporate limits, that's why they drive out there. But no, the Town of Garner will not receive any tax off this property because it's not going to be annexed.
So that,
Just like the one we approved on Old Stage Road was not in the town limits, and the one on Maxwell Road either weren't in the town limits. We approved all of those because we extended our ETJ.
Mr. Kennedy made a comment in perception. Does it bother you, or do you hear what is said? Garner's going to have single-wide mobile homes, and you watch that other lot next door, they'll put one over there too. I'm not going to Garner. I hear it as a realtor. Do I want to, and it's going to hurt your value in your $300,000 home because nobody's going to come if you decide to resell it. It will hurt. You're looking at the new, Mr. David, the new subdivision on Auburn Nightdale Road, excuse me, is 300 and up, right? Okay, it is. How many houses are you projecting?
I don't have any
there?
information on the price points.
All
It's Auburn Village is the name of the subdivision.
Okay. Across from where this is, edge of Auburn, I thought 77 acres, but I've been told since I came in tonight that they own about 150, and it's all up there. Burnett Farms has 179 acres. The Adams Place has 42.9 acres. Auburn Associates owns 43.97 acres. The majority of this land is going to be inside 540. Inside 540. It's going to be facing this lot. Probably ingress and egress there. I have no clue. It's going to put me inside 540. Not my preference, but it's home and I'm going to stay there. I don't have a problem looking at a single-wide mobile home. I have a problem 15 years from now when I'm gone and my son chooses or my sister chooses to sell. She's sitting there in a $300,000 home. And the value, well, there's a single-wide over here and it's not real well maintained, and we're not going to give you the value over here that you could get if your house were a mile up the road. I just truly believe that if you will look at the future and what you're bringing into Garner, that it's important to consider that for the future of the values where you're at. Is what I'm saying making sense? I truly do not want to argue the point. I want to look into the future of what Garner wants to be, what Garner's capable of. We've come a long way, and I'm somebody that's sure of that. My mother graduated from Garner High School in 1949, when what is now little apartments was the high school, as I did and as did my son. We've watched Garner grow. I do not want to see us move backwards. Please give this a lot of thought before you make your decision tonight. This is not about one man and one little trailer. This is about a lot that's going to happen in the future. Bingham Station, the mobile homes didn't come. That's houses, remember? the zoning didn't work for the mobile homes. For a reason, right? The mobile homes that are all there are about gone. Please, please, please look at the future. You are the people that are designated to look after the future of Garner, the future values, what your children and our grandchildren will come home to, their values. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else? Kilgore.
Tommy Kilgore, I live at 3737 West Lake Road. I'm the owner of 2548 East Garner Road. As Ms. Powell said here, correct me if I'm wrong, you live in a double-wide mobile home, is that correct? Right across the street? I do. Your mother lives in a single-wide mobile home right across. Your sister, single-wide mobile home right across the street. I'm just asking for one lot so a young man can buy him a mobile home, put on it, and live the American dream. Not asking for a mobile home park. Just asking to be on the same playing field as my neighbors, and a young man gonna get his first home. I don't own a home because you can't put a mobile home on there. I own 5 acres. I can't live there. I own it. But it seems like it's all about the money for you, man. Let's help the future. Let's don't degrade the future. Let's help the future. I can't afford a mobile home. This young man can. That's all he can afford.
I think we can agree, Mr. Kilgore, that we're all interested in looking at the future. Certainly I am. What we don't agree on is how that future may look depending on which fork in the road we take. And
nobody knows the future. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, do we?
yes and no. I mean, we can
You gonna wake up in the morning?
can certainly take some actions that will influence what happens tomorrow.
We can.
Ultimately, things may happen that we can't control, but these are things we can control. And this is what conflicts me, or conflicts us all, is what is best not only for the short term, but looking into the future, what is best.
So this is Garner's ETJ. This ain't in the city. Is that correct?
But it will be one day.
One day. And I hope this young man's living in your Garner district in his single-wide mobile home, man, 'cause that's what he can afford today. I can't. He can. That's why I don't live there. And I would appreciate if y'all strongly consider moving this forward where he could put a mobile home on it. Thank y'all for your time and all the time y'all spent on it. This is the 4th meeting that we've had on it. So I promise you I'd much rather be at home with my wife than me standing here today. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Brian Grady. I live adjacent to the property that the site's being changed, and it's my first time at a town meeting, so I'm getting a little education. Also, I don't really see but my whole deal is here. He can't. I mean, this land was given to him. I mean, he can't afford to live somewhere. He can't this. He can't that. We all make choices. We all get up every morning, put our clothes on just like everybody. I've made a lot of choices in my life. I've been married a while. Got two beautiful youngins. I don't particularly want to get up. I know a lot more about this than I probably should because I've lived there my whole life. I'm 45. Graduated Garner in '92. Went to Wake Tech for 2 years. Got an IGO scholarship, top 2 in my class. In which the farm we live across the street, I'd like to see it stay a farm the rest of my life. I don't really, and I actually live in a modular home, 1,800 square feet. I bought from Mr. Bannister. I'm sure everybody knows that name in Garner. And I'd like to, thank y'all for y'all's time, but I'd like to keep my property value as high as I could also. We all do. And I was on speaking terms with Mr. Kilgore. I overlooked the property prior to Mr. Eddie Lindsay, the previous man, leaving. They moved down to the river and, tried to help him with as much as I could. But now I see it is what it is. But like I said, and I love Garner. Born and raised here. So, thank y'all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing. I hope someone has crafted our direction.
We can certainly have further discussion, but I will make a motion that we find the request inconsistent with the comprehensive plan and deny.
Second.
Motion to second to deny. Further discussion.
Yeah, a few comments, because we're all bad-mouthing mobile home parks. And maybe you don't want to see them, but Bingham Station got built, and there's a mobile home park. There was one that's been sold, just like this. If 540 gets built and this property gets developed, all that property will be sold. You're sitting on the gold mine. All that happens. You're sitting on good property. But that mobile home park just recently got sold. Matter of fact, we approved it early this year, a former mobile home park. Didn't hurt those homes. And also Sutton, what's the property on New Bethel Church Road that backs up to it? Didn't hurt those home prices either.
Sutton Springs?
Yeah, Sutton Springs, thank you. That got sold, as did the Richardson Mobile Home Park on White Oak Road. As this develops, all that'll get sold too, because property values will increase as other development comes. So, I just think we made a mountain out of a molehill, because they could put 4 double wides right beside tomorrow. So I think we've made a mountain out of a molehill for one single unit. Again, I go back to what you did in May, which is a lot more concerning than this by far, because this won't be in the town limits of Garner for years and years and years and years and years. So anyway, that got made out of a molehill.
Well, I respectfully disagree a little bit, Mr. Mayor.
Just like the gentleman with the, I think the other one should have been conditioned, the first one, that would eliminate some of the concerns. But, it's pretty quick and easy because of what's in the area and what's been asked and what can go beside it and what's across from it and what's allowed now. R40 and R20 around it, what can be allowed now. I mean, again, this is not going to be in the corporate limits of Garner for a long time, until 540 comes. And we hope we'll see that, but anyway. And then it's got to be developed. I mean, we approved the East of Auburn subdivision 20 years ago. I was on the council when we did it, and we see how it's got built. I'm not holding my breath to it when it will get built, but that was, and we went to court over that too, as Mr. Anderson can remember for many years. So we'll move on, we'll take a vote, and that's how we shake things out here. And after the meeting, Mr. Kenny and I will still hug and kiss.
Wait a minute.
I'll stick around and watch that one.
I'm not. Maybe the first part, but let's look at the second.
That's part of what this deliberation is all about. I'll just make a quick comment, Mr. Mayor, and I'll defer to others. But, to Mr. Gilmore's point, I guess it would be nice maybe if we could see into the future. But then maybe sometimes it wouldn't be. We might be scared of what we saw. But I do think it's about the future and the reputation of our town and our ongoing efforts to improve this town for our current citizens and future citizens. And so I'm conflicted by this decision as much as any, I guess, as I've dealt with. But I'll support the motion to deny this one.
Bring this forward. We had a motion and a second. We need to vote.
Mr. Kilgore, I'm not against you. I am for Garner.
It's a business decision, I understand.
Call the motion, call the question.
All in favor of the motion to deny, vote.
Aye.
All opposed.
No.
Madam Secretary, roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Marshburn,
Aye.
Councilmember Behringer,
Aye.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton,
No.
Councilmember Vance.
Aye. It passes 4-1. The Historic Depot, Mr. Dickinson.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to present from the podium if that's okay.
Who said it was going to be easy?
While I'm pulling up this presentation, I did hand out one correction on the, in the report. There was a table, and I inadvertently added one line twice, and so I needed to move some of those dollars around. It didn't change the bottom line, but it did change slight modification. All right, I'm here to present a topic that we started discussing, I guess it's been discussed a while back, but back in October, we had a discussion and a presentation from the Garner Area Historical Society, and I believe many of them are represented here today, about the relocation of the depot, and several options were put on the table for the relocation of the depot, but it was finally decided that the lot at the corner of Pearl and Main would be an optimum spot for that. So over the last few months, we've been in discussions with the society, as I'll refer to them as, about certain aspects of the move that include the site plan, what elements would go on that site, the use of the adjoining site, the Pearl Street building, and then just various other things as far as you have in your packet a sample draft agreement. It's called a contract, but it's similar to a memorandum of understanding that would be between the town and the Garner Historical Society about the operation of the depot as a museum. And so what I'm going to do is to go through some of the elements of some of the things we've been talking about over the last few months. And follow along. One of the things we realize when this is moved is that it's going to need some restoration to the outside as well as some to the inside. There is a good amount of water damage, and you can see some of it in this photo. It's worse on some other elevations of the building, but this just kind of gives you an overview of the outside. It's what's considered a German lap siding. It's made out of wood, and over time it has deteriorated in several locations and some large spots. So we did get bids from various contractors to replace the siding on the building. The windows are also going to be in need of replacement, and various other elements. Some of the, like the roof is not insulated, so we would include insulating the roofs since it is a conditioned building. And some other elements, as the siding's taken off, you know, they'll likely want to put some type of sheathing or plywood sheathing just to give it more structural bracing and make it stronger. As you remember, this building was damaged by a vehicle that ran off the road a few months ago, and we did get that repaired. And so it is in good enough shape to be moved. And what we're proposing is that it would be moved to the lot on Pearl and Main, and then the renovations and restoration would take place after that move. This is just a snapshot of interior, and you can see where there's some water infiltration inside the building. So there would be some restoration that will need to be done inside and even within the walls. We did have, like I said, contractors look at it, and they know that could potentially be more damage once the siding's pulled off. And you'll see in the price estimate that there's a contingency that will help cover some of that, should they find more than what they expected. But I'll get into those particulars as we move along. So one thing we did is we engaged, after having conversations with the society about the site plan and how that might fit on that lot. There's a site plan included in your packet, and that's going to cover the Depot Museum and its placement on the lot. Also the caboose. There'll be various walkways, and because the Pearl Street building will be used as the restrooms and parking, we'll need a sidewalk from the Depot Museum to the Pearl Street building. Also, we're going to utilize the parking at Pearl Street for the parking for the museum. And then you'll see on the site plan some other elements, and those don't necessarily have to be done immediately with the initial moving of the depot. They can be phased in. There's, some additional walkways, some potential additional track for the caboose, and also you'll see there's a shelter that could possibly be added one day, and some other amenities as you go along, and those are phased in. So taking a look at the site plan, and I don't know how well everyone can see that. Let's see, which one of these turns it into a red dot here? The control mouse, there we go. Is that?
Hold your mouse button down.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So as you can see, just to orient you, this is Pearl Street along here. This is the existing Pearl Street building that's currently being used by the town. Does have restrooms that are ADA accessible. What we're proposing is that the depot be moved to a location approximately right here. And then with that, there would be a walkway that will allow access to parking and to the Pearl Street building for restrooms. As part of the ADA compliance, we will need to build a new ramp and a deck to the building and propose to have it at the platform height to make it somewhat authentic to what it would have been when it was located in its original location. So that's shown there. And then there's various other walkways that don't necessarily have to be in the first phase, but and this one I'm showing here, it shows some parking, but that's been eliminated on the last draft because currently the regulations don't allow any parking in this area. So I apologize for that draft.
Restate that now, Rodney, about where the parking that's shown is allowed and is not allowed?
Is not allowed.
All of that is not allowed?
No, it's not allowed.
That front's on Pearl Street, none of that parking can be there?
Correct, yeah, we amended it, and evidently I didn't change out I pulled the wrong photo in, but yeah, it is not. It's currently not allowed, so right now the plan is for parking to be at the Pearl Street building.
So it's not allowed by what, the UDO or the comprehensive plan or what?
Correct, and I can let Jeff explain that.
Just curious.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I pulled in the other.
Under general parking allowances, on-street parking is allowed if it's parallel, but perpendicular is not allowed because there's a general restriction that if it's anything more than just a single driveway, parking is not supposed to back out into the travel way. So we'd either have to do some amendments or come up with a different solution.
So that could be, it could be parallel parking. So you could put some parallel parking there. Okay, and it can't come out at an angle either. Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, apologize for that. We had a couple of different versions and I pulled the wrong one in here. The other thing you'd note too is that even without the parking, we're not proposing any curb and gutter right now, but at some point when the street is improved, there might be curb and gutter, but at this point, parking would be at Pearl Street. Some other elements for future phase is shown a shelter, and it's called, they call it a small pavilion. And then also you'll see that the caboose is located here. The Historical Society thought it would be important as a landmark to have that somewhere near the front of the property, and then we would have some track. This is showing a good length of track that goes almost to the depot, but on the first phase, we would likely just have enough track to cover the locomotive or the caboose, similar to what it is now, where it sits on Garner Road, and that could be a later project. Or we would discuss maybe some other options for making it look like a railroad with the concrete walkway. So those things are still open for discussion, but their site plan architect thought that would be a nice amenity to make the train look like it's actually going to the depot. We did talk about, potential for some on-site signage, so we would have that. And then there's also the ability to have some signage on our wayfinding sign, and that would help the public find their way here. What we propose is, as you'll see, we have a line through the lot that will serve as a divider and allow the town, if we choose to use that property or private development, to use that property for development, and that's consistent with some of the things that have been talked about when the North Garner plan was established. If in the future that site and even the ball field sites are redeveloped into, commercial or residential or whatever type property. And so we did carve that off, but in our discussions, we felt like, and I think the Historical Society felt like they had plenty of property to put their amenities on, but we know that could be open to discussion. So any other elements I need to mention in there?
Rodney, I just have a quick question. Since we'll be using Pearl Street for the restrooms, where will the present storage be for town records?
It would continue to be in the Pearl Street building for the time being. The Historical Society would just have access to the lobby area where the restrooms are, and there is the possibility of having a desk there as an office, and that way it would not take up any square footage in the museum. So they have, inquired about having a desk in the lobby, which should not be an issue.
But there would still be ample storage for our records.
There would still be ample storage. We have our storage located in a different section of the building. And then we've also agreed to allow the Historical Society to use the back part of Pearl Street for some storage, their own additional storage. That area had previously been used by one of the baseball leagues, and they have since vacated that since we built the concession stands out at South Garner Park. So they no longer use that office.
So any docent, excuse me.
Go ahead.
For any docents that might be there to explain the history of it and so forth, that they would operate out of the depot itself?
A docent would operate out of the depot. The office that I'm talking about, or the desk area, I think would be more for their business use, their general business use, so they won't have to take up any space inside the depot.
So the no curb and gutter at this time. So if someone else wanted to build something there or move something there, would we make them do curb and gutter? We're exempting ourselves. I mean, I just want to find out, because it sounds mighty fishy. We make everybody else put curb and gutter in, and we're not going to put curb and gutter in some of our own project. I just want to make that clarified.
I'm gonna turn to the subject experts. Would curb and gutter be required if someone else was building there? And I'm not sure, because there were existing buildings there already. I don't know if we get any credit for any of that?
At this point, due to the amount that's being added, that part of the ordinance would not be triggered. But as this moves into future phases, then curb and gutter will come with the additional improvements in the subsequent phases.
What would trigger it?
Typically, there's a trigger for ordinance requirements when you add a certain number of square footage or more than a certain percent to the existing sites.
Of facilities.
Of facilities, yes. Or if there's, or an improvement to acreage. It just depends. So there's triggers in the ordinance when you're redeveloping or adding development. If it gets to a certain threshold, it triggers landscaping compliance, and then if it goes beyond that, then it triggers all the other compliance issues.
Okay, so I was gonna ask the question why there wasn't a sidewalk from Main Street back here somewhere. I mean, I would think, I mean, we talked about the walkways in there. I would think we would try to have a sidewalk. I would think there would be a sidewalk off of Main Street if it's not where curb and gutter may be, if it would be up here in an area adjacent to the tracks where the caboose is going to be, and whether that's a real track or fabricate or whatever that may be. I just wonder why you got a path coming down here. I wonder why, excuse me, not a path, that sidewalk. I just wonder why we didn't bring a sidewalk from Main Street.
Well, one reason we didn't is there's no curb and gutter, and typically the sidewalk would back up the curb and gutter, and you'd want, you know, drainage, curb and gutter, and then also just trying to save on costs.
But if they can walk down from the depot to the caboose, according to this, the trail stops, why don't we take it paved the whole way? I mean, it doesn't have to be concrete, it could be asphalt. I'm just saying, I'm just wondering why, you know, we talk about sidewalks and walkability and so forth. I'm just sitting here thinking, why are we not having something to walk to our own project? I just don't understand that.
So I
wouldn't support it until I get a better answer than what I've heard.
So this sidewalk was put in because they were showing the parking. This would actually, it's a little unclear here, but this would actually be outside of this first phase of development. So the only parts that are really in this first phase is the building itself, the caboose, and then getting access from the existing parking to the caboose, or to the depot. All of the improvements that would be here along the front would come in at a second phase of development when we move forward, when we have the parking figured out and exactly how that's going to go. At that time, a sidewalk will be required from Main Street on down.
With the sidewalk, will it come with curb and gutter?
Typically, we would add curb and gutter with the sidewalk.
Another curiosity question, which will be in another phase, as you already stated, Rodney, about what's shown as track. I know the caboose is going to sit on a track. I'm just sitting here thinking, do we actually want a railroad track out there for people to trip over and fall over? That just sounds like a big liability issue to me.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's shown as track, and there's several ways it could be done. It could be done flush. We could do concrete with a track print on it, but we literally had some emails exchanged today, text exchanged today about talking about the possibility of what that could be in a future phase. So we're aware that could be a hazard, depends on how it's constructed. But we're not proposing to do that in the first phase, so.
I just would think that if that's going to be a feature to the caboose, that one of the first things you would do would make a connecting path from that depot to that caboose. Whether it's that, or a sidewalk, or asphalt, or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be something that would be in the first phase.
Yeah. One of the things that the Historical Society wants to do is to construct a brick walkway. And they haven't, I don't think they know exactly how they want to configure it, but that will be part of their fundraising, and they will potentially sell bricks and create a walkway, a brick walkway with names on it or whatever they choose to have on there. So that could be configured to lead from one area to another.
And the folks with the society can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the caboose is really not something that is going to be considered as an accessible amenity at this point in time. So I don't know if, without it being actively used at this point in time, it's more of an eye catcher than anything.
Well, let me ask this question, and it may be on here in the money, caboose relocation. If it's gonna be an eye catcher, I hope we're gonna eye catch it and paint it.
Or
Or do something to it. I don't
we
see
are
that
gonna
in here
paint it.
specifically. I'm assuming that's gonna be.
Yeah, painting's
done.
included.
Okay.
We
Just
already
wanna make
talked
sure.
about that. Yeah, it needs.
Because it'll be an eye catcher now if it's out there, but
Yeah, it needs to
can
be
look much
painted
better.
badly, so.
All right, just want to make sure it's going to eye catch in a more attractive way.
So that's pretty much it for the site plan, but like I said, I'll just reiterate that, of course, we'll have the move in the first phase, and then we'll have some sidewalk to go to Pearl Street in the first phase, adding the caboose with some track, and then we'll have to talk about what type of walkways to lead from one area to another. But we were, trying to be cognizant of cost and those type of things for this first phase.
On the first phase, this area is used for parking and I've been out there at some of these baseball games and counted almost 200 vehicles out there. So where the line is there going to be, I don't know if there's going to be a fence or some kind of marking or shrubs or anything that people will still can park on the other side, correct?
Correct.
If they so choose.
Yeah, we envision delineating that with shrubbery right now, and maybe possibly in another phase have some fencing that might be consistent with some of the wrought iron fencing we've been using in the downtown corridor. But for now, we would do that with landscaping.
Has there been a timeline established?
I was going to talk about that at the end, but we can talk about it now if you like. Let me go through the cost and everything, and then I'll get to that when we talk about the next steps. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, all right. All right, so the next thing I wanted to address was a cost estimate. And as we talked about, there's going to be some restoration of the outside, some on the inside, and some various other elements that need to be included. And you have a spreadsheet in your packet on page 69, and it covers some of the itemized costs on this slide. Kind of grouped it together because it was not readable once it got put on here, so grouped it together. But the moving costs, we've got estimates from a moving contractor that would be in the neighborhood of $42,750,000. The structural restoration, and as I mentioned, that would be the siding, windows, replacing damaged wood. That also includes insulating the roof area from the inside. Also would be some other elements as far as footings and foundation. One thing you would notice with the existing depot, it is currently on piers, and we thought it would be better not to have that open under the building. So we've included a foundation, and the foundation we're contemplating is called a pier and curtain wall, where you would have the piers that would sit forward of the wall, so it gives the impression that it's on piers. And that might be confusing for some that don't know about construction, but basically we're going to enclose the bottom, but give the impression that the piers stick out from the wall. Is that understandable?
Meaning it gives the appearance of how it was originally built.
Correct.
But protects it for today.
Correct, and that will keep anything or anybody or whatever from going under it. Also keep the elements out from under the building and those type of things. So it would have a foundation and a footing, and like I said, also we would have to build a ramp to make it handicap accessible. and that would have a deck area and the sidewalks on the site. That includes the restoration, but on the site cost, that includes the sidewalks. That also included the funds spent for the site plan and then signage on the site. And as part of the project, we also looked into relocating a caboose, and that's about $45,000, and that includes having, a small amount of track to make it look similar to the way it looks now on Garner Road. Those costs, depending on the timing of the moves, the most beneficial situation would be that the depot and the caboose would be relocated at the same time. If not, there could be some additional costs for moving of electrical lines and those type of things. But preferably, we would get it set up so the two can be moved on the same day. And the contractor would only have to would be out there to move the lines all on the same day instead of having to do it 2 different days. So that's gonna be contingent on the scheduling of the move. And then included some contingency in there for unknown. Like I said, once you get into the walls, whenever you're dealing with water damage, you get into the walls, you never know what you're gonna find. There could be some unforeseen things, or, we got these estimates, and we hope they're pretty good, but just never know. So with that rounds it up to about $300,000. Forgot a zero, sorry. But $300,000. And one other item that you will see on your cost estimate is that the Lions Club parcel, and it is to be determined. We have been in discussions with them, and there is going back to the site plan, there's a sliver of land on this parcel here that was used as a driveway between Pearl Street and Pearl Street building and where this property is, adjoining property is. So we have been in discussions with the Lions Club about hopefully acquiring that. At the minimum, they would be agreeable to an easement, but we think we can have some agreement where we can acquire that and make it part of the entire project. So that's what that line item is. The site plan costs also included some landscaping, as I mentioned. There would be some along this lot line, and then there could be some other plantings, around the buildings and other amenities as we go forth. Any questions about the project before I go into the draft contract? And
I have a comment, Rodney, for the public's benefit. There has been conversation with North Carolina Railroad about helping us with the cost of the relocation. They are still interested, and so that could bring some of the relocation costs down. We've made a proposal to them. We haven't heard back from them yet, but we expect to fairly soon.
Whenever, council is agreeable to taking this project forward, we would send the railroad that information, and they would be in a better position to make a commitment. So.
But they will be, they'll make a financial commitment. I'll make a frivolous statement. I didn't know if they'd be involved in the location. Maybe we just build a sidetrack and roll the caboose over there, but they won't do that.
We actually kind of joked about putting it back on the track and rolling it down. I'm not sure if that's a possibility or not, but it might make it easier.
Yeah.
Not sure. All right.
I got a couple of questions about it.
Yes.
I usually jump right into chopping trees before I look at the forest, but I support the overall plan, the specific site plan with some concerns that I'll raise in a minute, but in general, I support the plan and I support the budget. More important, I support the Historic Association for getting back on its feet and getting organized. letting people know about it. I appreciate your cooperation with the staff in this planning process. And I think this conversation started, let's just say, a long time ago. And so the other thing I support is your patience. And we are a lot closer than where we were. But just some general items, and this is to solidify, clarify, and get this thing where we can approve it. So my questions are not negative; they're foundational elements. The tree protection fences, that's just during construction. Is that what they are, or are they permanent?
Just during construction.
Okay. You answered questions about the Lions Club strip. Is there any, since we don't plan any major elements there in building anything, to simplify it, might be just as well to get us an easement to begin with, unless they've got a sweetheart arrangement for a gift or small compensation. But I wouldn't let that hang us up, but I'd go ahead and press that and not let it hang out there.
We don't feel that's going to be a hang-up.
You've addressed the question of sidewalk, but I think something somehow needs to be done. If people are going to pull up there and there might be 2 or 3 cars, somehow they need to get from close to Main Street down to the depot, if nothing more than a gravel walkway or something. But I think once you clean up this plan, which I think needs to be done so that we have an agreeable site plan when we adopt this whole thing, so that neither party is under any different illusions. I should know this, but I don't. Who will we depend upon for parking then? Will we be able to park along the street, or will we be restricted to go down to the Pearl Street parking lot? And I'm under the impression that we do not own the Pearl Street parking lot. Or to clarify it,
we own the parking in front of our building. Parking beyond that we do not own. But
you know who owns that?
The Baseball Association. It belongs to the Garner Baseball Inc.
Unless there's a baseball game going on, that they probably wouldn't have any problem with us using that parking lot if we had that much activity.
We should be able to reach an agreement, provided, considering we're allowing them to use our property for parking currently.
Do we see parking as a real issue?
I do not.
You mentioned
not on a
just have to
regular
make sure
basis.
that
Not on a regular
any
basis.
big events that are scheduled there aren't scheduled in the spring during baseball season, on Saturdays.
I think that's.
I think they kind of hope that some of those big events will be part of their crowd that they're going to be trying to invite in. So hopefully it'll serve a dual purpose.
Well, it's hopefully parking. Well, I don't like saying hopefully, but I don't. Is there any need to do any more about address a parking issue? Does the staff or the association think we need to do any more about it after we clean this up?
I think the first phase is to get the building there, get it operational. Parking is something that can always be added later. Sidewalks can be added later. We can see how it functions and put those elements in later. Setting it up this way doesn't prohibit making improvements at a later date.
You've got a willing council right now. I'm not sure what you're going to necessarily have down the road. I'd suggest we consider that up front and talk to us about that. We won't decide that tonight. Speak a little bit further about this future property line that would cut off about 40% of the property.
Yeah, the Garner, the North Garner plan, and it was actually a downtown revitalization rendering that was done, showed that potential that if the baseball fields ever were relocated, that whole area would be prone to redevelopment, and it could be, transit-oriented development, higher density development. It could be some commercial elements, mixed use added in. And so when we originally purchased this property, we assumed that it could potentially be part of a redevelopment. So.
Well, I was here when we purchased it, and maybe we did discuss that, but I would, I'd like for us to think a little bit about it, that we've got two specific items there now, and we're going to have a pavilion. What we may envision today, we see this, and we need to get it. We need to get it completed, and get these first elements done. But also think about what happened down in Fuquay with their initial footprint, and to think about what happened in Coates with their initial footprint. And I would recommend strongly that we remove this line there about a future property line, because I don't think we need to limit the possibility. We're putting so much effort, so much money into this one site that, just look at that. Can you imagine, even with the way the people are requesting buffers now, we could have a multi-story building backed up and casting a shadow over everything that we're doing. Plus, if you got a group of children there, they got to have some place to mill about. Everybody can't get in that depot at one time. To me, restricting our future development with somebody's going to come along and offer the town, offer the association, I believe, some additional amenity, and we will wish that we had it. We've got it now. I'm kind of like my wife when it comes to playing Monopoly. She only purchases property. She never sells property. Therefore, the game comes to an immediate halt. She's here. She'll verify that. But really, I don't want to see us.
And I don't have that rendering pulled up. We might be able to pull it up, but it did actually show a commercial building that overlooked a pocket park. So we felt like this would be consistent with that long-range plan, but we can adjust it however council sees fit.
As you've mentioned to me more than one time, that's only one person speaking, but I'm raising it to see if it gains any traction. Next is that it appears that the first phase, this $300,000 only includes a small amount of track, not all of the track that's shown here.
Correct.
If we do this, can we, if we make any revisions to this, can we show what's to be built now, what's future? Because we don't need to, need to have future groups wondering what we're supposed to do, and because what we need to do now is to be clear about it. And
you suggesting another site plan with only the first phase elements on it? Is that?
Well, I would show that as a second phase. Plus, you got to clean this up to take off this parking.
Yeah. I actually already have that. I just pulled in the wrong one. I'm not sure how long it would take to pull that.
Trying to get it for you. Trying to get it for you.
Okay.
Let me go ahead. I agree with a little bit. With the idea of additional track, if people are running back and forth there, that can be a hazard. But I'm not going to stand on my head about that. I've mentioned the property limits and our limited vision today, and hopefully other amenities will follow. Even if I can't envision those today, we need to settle the issue of the track. Would it be a budget buster if we put a stone walkway there, so at least there's something that keeps people out of the mud, or would asphalt 4 or 5 foot width thing, would that be a budget buster, you think?
We could add a hard surface for walkability. That's not not a problem. Just being budget conscious, but we can add whatever other elements.
Well, speaking of budget, couple of items there. I saw on the one that we got in our package, it had landscaping was $1,000. When it was revised, it was $3,500. One was handed out to us tonight.
Yeah, the original landscaping, we were just gonna do a minimal amount around the buildings. Some, near Pearl Street building, and we had talked about putting some plantings near Pearl Street and some around the building, but as the site plan was developed for delineation, we thought it'd be better to delineate that with plantings. And then you also might have plantings around the sign and some of the other elements. So we increased that landscaping allowance.
Will there be any seeding or anything added to the grass, or we're just going to leave it natural in that back part?
We didn't really discuss that. We just use whatever grass is there and just plant.
Well, that would be what they would have done 120 years ago, that's for sure. What was natural, what the good Lord gave us.
Rodney, how much more time do you need?
I need about 5 more minutes for my presentation, but I wanted to give the Garner Historical Society an opportunity to speak on anything or to clarify anything that's been said, but
Just
yeah. All right.
I was going to say just a quick comment or two. Do you want to go next?
That's where I'm trying to go.
Go ahead. I think we do need to take a break.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to build on Mr. Kennedy's illustration there and say maybe what we're to do is roll the dice and see how far we advance on this. But at any rate, I like the plan. I think I appreciate what the Historical Society and you have done together. I'm not so involved with some of the technical aspects, but Mr. Kennedy certainly raised those. But I agree with him. I think this council is support it and move ahead with it. But carry on.
Okay, Ms. Perringer's got to make a comment or two, and we're going to try to work our way into a break.
Yeah, I'm just real pleased to see this actually coming to pass. It's been a long time in the making. It's been necessary for many, many years. I've watched the depot. I've watched us throw money after repairing the depot and then watch it deteriorate again, and that distresses me beyond explanation. That's wasted money. And I think now with the plan that we're doing, moving forward, we're going to have it in a position where it gives back to us instead of taking from us, and it will also draw people into our town, potentially bring revenue into our town, something that we just haven't experienced before. So I'm real pleased with what I see, and I'll be happy if we move forward tomorrow.
Rodney.
Did you want to continue?
Yeah, finish with your spiel, and then we'll hear from now.
Well, before I go into the draft contract, I just want to see if the Garner Area Historical Society has any comments about anything that's been said about the budget or the site plan or any clarification, just to make sure we're all consistent and I represented our conversation. No? This might be the first time that you've been offered opportunity to speak. Oh, okay, all right.
We had talked about the.
On up.
Come on, yeah, come on.
Bash, you know you have to state your name and address at the podium so the microphone can pick up. Anybody should know that, you should.
Judy Bass, 116 Mary Kirk Place in Garner. All I want to speak on right now is the track. We do feel that's a lot of track. What we had seen in a visual that someone did for us is a shorter length of track, and it had the little cross arms, and then sidewalk that could either go flush over the track or a little bridge to go over it to eventually lead to the pavilion. I mean, y'all had talked about the track. That is a lot of track, and we would like to see just a little less, but we'll get with staff and see how that looks on paper. So outside of that, if y'all have any questions.
What do y'all think about that potential cutting off and dividing the lot?
Well, we'll take everything you give us.
I think temporarily it doesn't hurt anything because you're a long way from doing other things. And the parking, I mean, it's definitely neat. I mean, you go down there, I say on some of these evenings when these kids are playing ball and they're parked everywhere. And we know we don't let them park on Main Street except on ball day when we cover the signs up. They're prohibited from doing that, so they have to park somewhere. And that space gives them, you know, they've been using it off and on for years, and I mean, it's a lot of cars down there.
We met with the chair of Garner Baseball, or president of Garner Baseball, and he's willing to share, we're willing to share. We would certainly try not to have any major events when they have their major events, and hopefully work together on minimizing that.
Let me also mention, Judy, and for the benefit of the rest of you, this is the first time that the council has had a chance to discuss it. We saw the plan, y'all have been seeing it for a while. We saw it Thursday night for the first time. And we just have, so these questions come up, it's just natural. And we want this to be the very best from day one. And so, you know, we ask questions just to clarify and strengthen it.
Sure.
Kay Whaley, 103 Lawshie Circle, Garner. Yes, I have always said since the beginning, I'd like that little extra piece of land because as Rodney knows, I've already told him several times, my eye is on that Dupree house on the Jurgen property. It will not be torn down. So that's something that could be moved there or something else that's historically related to Garner. So yes, and we've talked about it in our meetings, but we didn't think it was a possibility. So yes, I'm looking to the future like, well, Linda's not here now, but I'm looking to the future for that too, because I think it will expand and be something really, really great.
Thank you, Kay.
You're welcome.
Hey, here's Amy Griggs.
Amy Griggs, 209 Shady Hollow Lane. Just wanted to thank this staff for what a wonderful, welcoming, helpful group of people they have been to us. And we act nice, but we're not always the easiest people to work with. And, you know, we kind of want what we want. But Rodney has been so helpful, and everybody in the planning, we just couldn't have any nicer, more helpful people. So just wanted y'all to know that.
All right, so I'm gonna cover this next section briefly. It's just a draft. Ms. Bass was kind enough to find a model contract from another location that we use as a template, because as we go forward, the town's going to own the property, the town's going to continue to own the historic depot, but we're giving the Garner Area Historical Society the authority to run the museum and to take collection of items for display and to run the day-to-day activity of museum. And I believe, you know, they're going to go into some fundraising ventures, and they're also going to be asking their members as well as other volunteers to chip in to make this a successful endeavor. And so this is just the a contract. We're not asking you to approve any of this tonight, of course, but it talks about in Article 1 the term. So that's something we'll need to consider. What type of term do we want to give the Historical Society for the running of the museum? And, you know, I think they would like to see something long-term. We've talked about at least initially 5 years, but could certainly go well beyond that because we're making investment. They're going to be making investments. They're going to be getting items on loan, and they'd like to know for sure that they're going to have use of that building for the long run. So that's something we'll need to discuss. Article 2 talks about scope of services on page 73, and that basically is just spelling out that the Historical Society is responsible for recruiting and training the employees, opening the museum, They'll be in charge of the collection, changing out the collection, the responsibility of the collection and those type of things. And they'll have policies that are consistent with, I'm sure there's probably some museum handbook they'll follow. And, but our main concern is, like in section 2.3, is that they're gonna make it available for the public, the general public, for viewing of items and to talk about the history. And as part of this, we are, like I mentioned, we're going to allow them to use a portion of Pearl Street building, and that's for the storage of some of the artifacts, and also to have some office space and access to the restrooms and parking. Expenses, as we talk about expenses, the society shall bear the cost and pay expenses unless it's otherwise spelled out in this contract. And, you know, those things can be amended and negotiated over time. But if you see here, basically the society will provide expenses for interior janitorial services, exhibit construction and maintenance, and for flower beds and box plantings and maintenance. And one thing I'd like to point out is the item number 2, where it talks about exhibit construction and maintenance. This restoration we're talking about is basically the restoration of the building, the infrastructure. The Historical Society will be responsible for display cases and the other amenities that will be put inside the building for the display of artifacts and collections. So it does not have any casework and those type of things. They'll be supplying that or having it built, or that'll be part of their fundraiser as they lay out the inside. Of the town, since it is a town building, we felt it was best that the town would be responsible for the electrical, water, and sewer. Should there ever be any sewer on site, we're not proposing any water and sewer in the building at this time. They will use the Pearl Street building. So, you know, if something was to happen with that, we would, of course, be in charge of maintaining that. Fire alarm and suppression, if we have that, I think now there's an alarm on the building. Because they're going to be borrowing things and those type of things, they have requested that the building be alarmed. Of course, snow removal, lawn mowing, and general landscaping. But we did mention that the Historical Society may do some of the horticulture as volunteers. But the main landscaping, grass cutting would be with the town. Maintenance of sidewalk and parking lot, any structural building maintenance or replacements, and then we'll have to talk about future phases and how those are being paid for. But for now, we want to just get this first phase going, and the town will be responsible for garbage, trash, receptacle, and I think Judy put this in there, replacement of out-of-reach light bulbs and receptacles as needed. So they're not going to call us to change the light bulb in the lamp, but if it's one way up in the ceiling where she might have to get on a ladder, she may call the town in to help. So, and for the most part, that delineates some of the items.
Timeline?
One of the questions I had was building maintenance. So ongoing building maintenance, not exhibit, but building maintenance itself is the town's responsibility. Number 6.
Number 6, okay.
Essentially, whether funds are available or not, it's still our responsibility then.
Yeah.
I've got several other questions, not tonight. I'll send you things to strengthen it, clarify, that I think will be better for all concerned down the road. But I'll just send those along, and if you can forward them to the so that the association can see the comments as well.
Okay.
Rodney, what do you need from us? What do you need from us tonight?
Well, I certainly don't want to rush you into any decision, but I know that the Historical Society is anxious to get this going. So at whatever earliest point you decide to have the town move forward and allocate a budget for it, we will certainly move to try to get this scheduled. Speaking of schedule, can I go into that now?
Yes.
You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. So some of the next major steps is approval to move forward, complete the site plan review, and we would do that like we typically would with any development, and that should be expedited. I know staff has done a lot of that review already. Town approved the project budget, and then we would move to hire the masonry contractor to put in the footing and foundation and get the moving contractor on their calendar so we can get the items moved, and then we would go into the restoration once it's moved. As far as time period, we can't move fast enough for the Historical Society, but just being realistic, I know Judy and I have discussed that they would like to see the building moved by the end of the year and be able to move into the building, a completed building by spring of next year when all of your outdoor events start up and your downtown events. We're talking like, about a 9-month project or so.
Are you looking for council approval to move forward? Is that what we need to tell you tonight? Or as soon as we can?
As soon as you can, when you feel comfortable, we need to move
Let's do it
forward.
now. Let's go on and do it.
About the site plan, but just one concern, I might, the whole plan hold it up. But I know we can put curb and gutter in phase 2, but the town should be a leader. I don't like doing that, because then people say, well, you didn't put curb and gutter in when you did this. When we did the rec center, we went across the east side of Montague Street and took curb and gutter all the way down the street, which wasn't in the original scope. I just think you should do that part of it the first time you do it. I think, and I'm reading between the lines, is phase 2 is gonna be in the next bond referendum, and we're gonna have Parks and Rec money to do all this other stuff, fine and dandy. I just don't like when we, as the town, should be a leader. We have rules and regulations. I still think you should put curb and gutter right there and the sidewalk on it when you do it, because that's what you expect development to do. When people phase a subdivision, they gotta put part of it in. And I know this isn't a subdivision, but we should be the leader, not say, well, we can do it in phase 2, so that's what we'll do. That's just great talking. I always think the town should go above and beyond what the UDO says.
I would just caution, my one thing that I would ask you to think about is that it does make a difference as to whether we want to consider on-street parking or not, because you don't want to go in and put in the curb and gutter without knowing what you want that final configuration to be. Otherwise, we're just going to be ripping it out later.
Well, I don't disagree. I'm talking about doing that right, doing that too. I mean, I'm talking about doing it right to begin with. That's just me. I'm not slowing it down, but I just think the site plan should be the way you should have the parking in front of it, and you should have the curb and gutter and a sidewalk like you would make any other development do.
Could I ask one quick question? I don't want to get ahead of the process, but of the Historical Society, I'd be curious to know when they maybe have a intention to start some fundraising. Is that after we get things located, or soon, or before that?
I'll let them answer, but what they've been telling me is that they need a firm commitment from the town before they can go out and promise folks what's coming and secure funds from others. But if they want to answer differently, feel free.
Our intention is, and we do need this approval of the budget from the council to start any fundraising, but our intention is that in the fall of this year, then we're already developing a fundraising plan, so we're hoping by fall of this year that we'll start our fundraising. But this, is all based on whether or not this budget is approved and we've got the final go-ahead before we can start the fundraising.
Thank you, Judy.
Let me make one suggestion. Everybody's been wanting a break. There's some other things that's blanks in this contract. Let's take the break, come back. Let's have a little bit more discussion so that we've got something, all the pieces to work on before we send you off, and then wind up with a second round of
Let's make sure, are you through?
Right. I am through, but I just make it clear, I am not asking for any approval on the actual contract tonight, regardless of what happens.
But we want to give you some guidance.
But yeah, that'll be fine.
I'm going to close the meeting and we'll start back over. 10-minute recess, 10-minute recess.
Wanted us to consider as we look to amend it and improve upon it.
So this is a contract, not an MOU?
It's called a contract. It could be called a MOU. It's pretty similar. It's just delineating the responsibility of both parties.
I think it would be helpful if we went ahead and gave them some, our insights on the Article 1 about the term of the contract. And I'd suggest that with the amount of money that's being involved here, give it some fair amount of initial time, at least 10 years. And then if necessary, you know, it can go further than that as far as I'm concerned, but if necessary, 5-year renewals on mutual consent. But take it on down the road a ways. Leave it open-ended, but it can be terminated.
Right.
I think we need to fill in a date for the, if it's necessary to put in there about if the contract is terminated. As long as it's taken us to get a plan together, it would be really difficult to find a new site and get all of that. So quite frankly, we'd have to give a rather long lead time, in my opinion, if you terminate it. I hope we never have to do that. But if you do, if it's necessary to put it in here, and maybe all contracts need that, I'm going to suggest at least a year. That sounds like an abnormally long time, but a minimum of 180 days. But that just really binds them and unnecessarily, because there'd be a whole lot of discussion about terminating in any event. They could start looking, but I'll leave it up to people that are better advised than I am. We are committing an income stream indefinitely for paying for utilities and electric and water and sewer. Did it say anything in here about we were reserving the right to adjust this participation in the future, or do we have any language like that, or do we need any language like that? We may, or is that just best to leave that out? We're solidly committed to providing those utility costs. And the reason I'll tell you why, I know of a sister community where it got to the point where management was recommending to the society that they turn the lights out because they were burning too much electricity. And so I'd like to avoid that one. That sounds petty, but when you hear it happen, I don't want us to, once we commit, I don't think it's going to be a barn burner.
Section 5.3 allows for amendments by written instrument executed by both parties.
Look it up. Should the budget be made a part of this agreement, as well as the site plan, as well as perhaps the site plan of Pearl Street?
Well, I see the site plan and the budget as part of the town's project, and then once it's completed and gets a certificate of occupancy, we will turn over the building for use by the Historical Society. So, so I don't see a need of actually putting a budget in here.
Okay.
It's I think understood the town's going to be responsible for that part of it.
But speaking of the use of the Pearl Street building, should we go ahead and get that as sketch out and have some agreement on the space, so that's not subject to debate down the road?
Yes, what I will do is I will, as an exhibit to this agreement, I will include a floor plan of the Pearl Street building and delineate the areas that are for town use and the areas that are for the Historical Society use. And we'll attach that as exhibit to this.
Ask a question about that. In delineating the space for use, is the town going to have a separate entrance to their area, or are they going to have to go through an area with folks from the depot there working, trying to talk with people? That could be a little confusing.
Yeah, we don't go in that building every day. You know, we do go in there from time to time, but we would have to coordinate that. There's only one entrance to get to the storage area for the town, but I think that's something we could work out. And also, that space they're gonna be using is a small area just with the desks for their own business use. So it's not like we're gonna be walking through patrons to get to our area. So I see that as something we can work out. And then there is a separate entrance to the back of the building where they will be using for storage. So that is delineated.
And if it shows that the need shows itself, could there be a partition, like a movable partition or something that keeps the flow of traffic separated?
The size of that lobby, that would not be conducive for the size of that lobby. It's small enough where that's not really going to work too well, because we have to be able to get dollies of boxes and things back into our area.
Okay.
But I think they've seen the space and they're gracious for having use of it. There's a desk there now, or there used to be one there, and so they feel it's going to meet their needs and that we will be able to work around any issues, town use, otherwise.
We've got 3 weeks before the first meeting in August. Can we have these things pretty well solidified so we can approve it on August 5th? You think that's reasonable?
Yes, we can. We can have any amendments or anything. And like I said, we're not looking, the contract can be approved at any time along the way, but that's more for when they're running the museum as a depot. The most urgent matter would be more of the moving and the restoration and the site amenities, site restoration.
I go along with Gray on the idea of address curb and gutter now for what it's going to be, for what its cost is going to be. It would be a heck of a lot more to come back and do it later on, so nail it. And I don't know how that's going to impact access to the site, whether it's done before or after the moving, but you'll figure out what's the right sequence of events. But if we know it's going to be done, let's do it now.
We discussed.
Suggestion, I just talked with Mr. Dixon and Mr. Rolance and Mr. Hodges, and that cost could be maybe substantial, so I would just ask this, that you got an estimate here, and let them get an estimate, working with staff, on if you had, because you got to make improvements on one whole side of Pearl Street, how much more that'll be, then we can decide at that time, because what they said, the budget will more than double, it might be substantially more than that. So why don't we just get this working budget, ask that as like just bring us the numbers, that way we got it and can decide then. Because if it is 2 or 3 times more, then it'll probably be in the next bond
The
referendum.
last thing I want to do is put it up on impediment, so that's fine with me. That's all I have. We're close enough that we can see the starting line to, not the end point, but we're at the end of the beginning and not the beginning of the end.
I could certainly support his idea of, if staff has time to pull it all together, bringing it back at the August, first meeting in August, and council approve something at that time.
With so many different people that are involved, I've neglected to recognize staff's efforts. It's been a long time coming, and we have, fortunately, it was a good softball, as Gray mentioned earlier about throwing softballs, but because otherwise we would have broken out some window lights someplace if it had been a hard ball. It's been a long time coming, and it seems like quite a long time since we first started, but thank you for your perseverance in getting it this far, and we'd like to finish it off, get folks started, let the association get off the ground.
And so, although we may not get to a firm budget and agreement tonight, but I think, I guess the Historical Society can be comfortable that the council is moving toward the project, and we'll make some, definite decisions on the 5th.
Yeah.
I don't know what else y'all need, or you good? All right.
Okay, John Hodges, you're up.
There's a question over here?
The budget, the approval of the budget is being continued to August the 5th. Yep. And we're to bring them back, the budget that I presented tonight with any corrections that might need to be made, but the bottom line stay the same. And a alternate budget with curb and gutter and sidewalk from the building all the way to Main Street and parking. The addition of parallel parking, which I'm not sure how many spaces we'll get out of that, but we'll take a look at it.
But our objective is to approve the plan, the site plan, the budget, and the agreement. Come down. We got too many loose things just to say, we pretty well got it worked out. We need to put it in writing.
The site plan will follow our regular procedures, so it may be on a little bit of a different track than the other elements.
First phase versus the second phase.
Yeah, we can ask them to do that. It may be additional cost, but we can ask the architect to clean that up for us and bring you back something that looks exactly like what we're proposing. So, that work? You got, as far as the site plan timing, can you address that? Because I know there's some concern about the timing and trying to get this moving forward.
Yes.
I can see it on the faces.
Yes, so for museum uses in this area, it will need to be rezoned to Central Business District. So we have put that in the system. Our plan is for us to get the site comments wrapped up, of which clearly delineating phase 1 versus future is already one of those comments. Our hope is that this will go to Planning Commission, since it will be a conditional use district with a conditional use site plan, that it will go in August and then come to you in September for final action.
Okay, so just to be clear, what are we doing on August the 5th?
August 5th, I'm gonna bring back 2 budgets and amended contract, MOU, whatever we want to call it. And then the site plan will continue to track along the site plan.
One wrinkle there, we can't enter into a contract to have a museum there if it's not zoned for a museum, so we got to get those in the right sequence.
Okay, okay.
We have the contract ready for approval, but, we just can't execute it.
But we can make it subject to.
Sure, yeah.
That's fine. But let's do everything and make.
Well, actually, no, we can't, because if it's going to be conditional use zoning, that would be something that would be, kind of mess up the quasi judicial thing if we've already committed to it, so we need to hold back on that.
Judy,
And
you'll be able to explain that. Internally.
all right. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. John Hodges. Yep. So we'll double check there.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm bringing an item to you tonight on behalf of Chris Johnson, the town engineer who is on vacation with his family. He had an item that he felt like he wanted to get council's input on, because if the council chose to move forward with the recommendation, there is some time sensitivity for us to be able to take advantage of current contract that we have for resurfacing. So the item that we have tonight is Lakeside Drive. This Lakeside Drive from Van Springs Road down to Avisboro Road and then over to Benson Road. This is the subject of a lot of complaints we have for speeding. Police and engineering get numerous calls for this road from time to time, and after a number of these, police and staff at engineering have worked together to come up with a proposal for a way that we could provide some traffic calming to this. The section of this of Lakeside between Vandora and Park Avenue is right here. So this entire stretch, which is 0.63 miles, is a 2-lane street that is 46 feet wide. So this is a very wide section of the street, much wider than our typical sections. And that does lead to some of the challenges we have with speeding. There's also no delineated parking on this area, and because there's not a lot of need for street parking in this area, it just exacerbates the situation for speeding. So for anyone who's not familiar with the street, this is just a view of Van Springs near Vandora Avenue, the existing condition. And then when you get further down between Park and Avisboro Road, it does narrow down a bit. Some of the center lines here, these are from Google Earth photos, so some of these lines center lines may not be there current day. So one of the proposal that the engineering staff put together that they wanted to share with you tonight would be the concept of doing a striping project along this portion from Van Springs Road to Park Avenue, and it would take the current 2 14-foot lanes with 6.5 foot lanes for parking on each side that gives us the total makeup now, and with striping you could stripe dedicated 6-foot parking, dedicated 4.5-foot bike lanes, and dedicated 10-foot drive lanes, which are typical for the street of this type in Garner. And you could do this again from Van Springs Road to Park Avenue. And then the proposal from Park Avenue to Avisboro and across to 50 to be able to continue that bike lane, should we choose to continue that amenity. You could do bike share rows, which is simply the decals that are painted in a 13-foot share row that show that bikes and cars are sharing the road there. So this would be both a traffic calming measure that could be done, but if council chose to do this the entire length, you could have a fairly lengthy addition of marked bike lanes that cross a significant portion of town.
John, what was that 2.5-foot width for?
I believe that is, you know what, I didn't do these graphics, so let me see if, I think that is just the curb and gutter that is there.
Okay.
Again, I apologize, I didn't create the graphics and I'm presenting for someone else. So let me go back to the photos there. So it looks like there's roll curb there, so I think that's probably taking into consideration the curb that's there.
That's
Roll curb all the way down to Park, then it goes to the curb, which in one of the last repavings, they put the asphalt in the curb and gutter. Whenever we clean that up, we mill it out and get it back like it used to be.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So the proposal would be that if we choose to move forward with that, then this could be the striping configuration that we could consider. The cost to do this is proposed, and this is working with our current provider for our paving resurfacing contract. They're about to finish all of the work that is going to require any restriping. So if we wanted to take advantage of this before they would have any additional charges for mobilization, that's the reason we're bringing this to you tonight when Mr. Johnson is not here. We'd want to get them started on that right away. So the first section, the longest section to do the striping would be about $44,800. If we did refresh the center line, the yellow center line, that would be an additional almost $20,000. The second section would be from Park all the way over to Highway 50. That would be $92,000. And then if we did the center line there, it would be $6,000. So all total, it would be $80,000. If we did not refresh the center lines, it would be about $26,000 less than that.
Now these markings, according to Chris's letter, are going to be the thermoplastic markings, not the painted stuff, which is faded and which is horrible. It's going to be the best.
Yes, sir.
Make sure, because, well, go ahead and I'll give you some history of Lakeside and Avisboro, why the markings are there now.
That's all I have. I'll be glad to go back to any of the graphics and answer any questions that I can.
Reason the double lanes are at Lakeside now, from Park down to Lakeside and across on the other side, is when we did a traffic plan back in '99, I was on the committee, and we'd had 2 deaths at that intersection in about 5 years. And the speed limit, once you went past that, south on Avisville, was 45. That's why we put the caution light there. That's when we changed the speed limit to 35. We put the striping all the way down Lakeside and across on the other side for, I don't know, 30, 40 feet to help traffic, some of that traffic calming. There were issues, people speeding then. I mean, it's not hanging on the way. So that's why that intersection was made safer, because there were 2 deaths there over about a 5-year period. And the speed limit was changed. So I've already mentioned this to Matt before about restriping those lines. They definitely need to be done. I mean, do it and let's do it right. And the center line, you know, what he's proposed sounds good. I travel through Lakeside almost every day, the section between Lawndale and 50, and cars park on there and cars do speed. There are other ways to do traffic calming other than the traffic calming devices we have, like in Greenbrier and Cloverdale. I go through too many towns. I can take you to Raleigh right now on Glasscock Street. They have raised sidewalks all over Raleigh, right outside the fire station. When somebody talks about public safety, they ain't slowed them down over there. They did numerous raised sidewalks to slow traffic down over there.
What is that?
Raleigh, get on.
What is a raised sidewalk?
Speed table?
Speed table. Speed table, raised sidewalk to slow down. They also brought out at the intersections curb and gutter and created parallel parking, so it would narrow the road at the intersection, yes. That's numerous places in Raleigh you can go through where they have done significant things to help slow down speed. But this, it's not as wide as what Lakeside is.
John, I'm enthused about the proposal for some bike lanes. These will be some of the first designated bike lanes, is that right?
To my knowledge, yes, sir.
Yeah, if we proceed with this. And it would be for the length of Lakeside, is that right?
So from Van Dora Springs to Park would be designated, dedicated lanes. And then if you chose to continue that, which I don't think you'd want to stop them at Park, you might stop at Avisboro. But from Park on to either Avisboro or to 50, it would be the share row concept where you've got 2 13-foot travel lanes and you indicate those with the decal with the bike and the arrows that show that it's a share row. And while that may be new to some folks that are driving on the road, those that are accustomed to biking are going to take advantage of those share rows.
I'd asked John this question earlier. John, when do we expect to resurface Lakeside?
A portion of it, I know that Mr. Johnson said would not be before 2023. And I don't know if that is the entirety of Lakeside or if it's a portion of Lakeside.
And the reason somebody mentioned earlier tonight, I'm all about the dollars, and I've never gotten over sticker shock, but I was literally surprised at the price of $80,000 to stripe it, because I was more in tune with 2 5-gallon buckets of paint and we're done.
We don't want paint,
I understand, but that was my mindset. So, but the idea is in that 5 years, we can cover that up and do it again.
We just repaved last year. We just repaved Lakeside from Avisboro to 50. That just got redone. It was last.
That portion wouldn't be restriped.
That's not to be restriped. And it's also stop bars. Here. Let me tell you about these. The sorry quality of painting stripes. Go to both the high schools. I've been taking my daughter practicing driving. She started driver's ed driving this week. South Garner's in its 3rd year, 4th year. Almost half the numbers on all the marked spaces you can't read, nor can you see the lines. The high school's been open this year. Go drive through the new high school at certain points. You can't even see the markings. There's a business, that's a prominent, nationally known business that's opened in town less than 2 years ago. The lines in the parking lot are gone. It's been there less than 2 years. And it's just the thermoplastic. If we're going to do it right. If you resurface over it one day, you resurface over it one day. That's going to happen. But it's just, if you can do it right. Don't go out there with the can of traffic marking paint with the inverted arrow and put it there, and a year later you can't see.
The reason I bring it up is, if we hadn't been thinking about it, we're going to cover it up And if that's okay with everybody, that's fine. I'm not going to be the one that's going to stop our first efforts in bikes. But I do think that you get this started and then it's going to be an expectation. Hey, you spent $80,000. Where's my next bike lane? This doesn't go far enough. So we don't
have wide roads like this to do bike lanes. This is the fluke. Because when I was growing up on Sycamore, you had the raised sewer manholes, you remember, and you had the median in between that was supposed to have grass on, that was clay, and it was god awful ugly. But this is why they got, and they lowered those back in the early 80s.
But it's going to give them more credibility to say, well, then we got enough room on timber, and we can that suggestion that consultant made to narrow Aversboro from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and so I can envision a loop here. So I'm not throwing cold water. I'm trying to enlighten us. We're starting, but I will not stop it. I just bring it to your attention, and I've said it plenty.
John, is this Lakeside Road is it connected to any other designated bike routes?
We don't have any designated bike routes in town, Mr. Vance.
First.
This would be the first. And I think that what engineering and PD thought is because the length of this, it creates sort of an amenity of its own. It connects two thoroughfares with Vendor Springs and Aversboro Road. You have people choosing to bike on those now. They just don't have designated lanes. But it would be a fairly decent stretch of distinguished bike lanes there.
We have share the road signs in numerous places in Garner already. We put them up 5 years ago. So, I mean, just go across Timber Neighborsboro and there share the road signs with the bicycles. So we have numerous ones of those around Garner already. I'm not jumping up and down about putting the bike lanes, but the fact of the matter is cars do speed and go very fast on Lakeside. If this is a traffic calming device to help, then we should take it under consideration and do it, because cars are parked on Lakeside, they park on the narrow part of Lakeside. It's just, I mean, it's a connector.
So this is a proven method then?
Yes, sir. I think police and engineering both feel good about it. Police is here if there's any questions that you've got about the speeding or any experience they've had with that. Remiss to not have acknowledged that earlier, but they can also answer any questions you have about it.
It certainly doesn't prevent us putting in raised tables and later on, if it's not effective, not accomplishing what we want.
It does not. I think that most professionals would tell you that this will be a much more effective tool than raised tables, and we're already experiencing maintenance issues with some of the speed calming devices we've installed in Garner. We've got maintenance issues. We're having trouble getting parts to maintain those. And so I think that most folks would probably tell you that this is likely to be much more successful than any other type of traffic calming measure. If council would choose to fund this, staff would recommend that we do have a reserve of Powell bill funds that build up, over the years. There is a reserve there, and we could pull this out of the reserve from Powell bill and add it to the resurfacing contract for this year.
And it will include all the markings on Lakeside. I'm going back to Lakeside and Aversboro. It will include the stop bars. It will include thermoplastic, because the stop bar on the east side is not good. I know they redid the paved between Aversboro and 50 last year and did those marking, but they're not thermoplastic. I think it's just paint. I just want to make sure it's all done the same way.
Okay.
Don't want to leave paint in one place.
Okay, there's a requested action on this item.
Move to accept the manager's recommendations, staff's recommendations, and appropriate the funds from the fund balance from Powell bill for the installation of these traffic calming device.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Committee reports. Any committee reports?
Don't have one.
Hearing none, we'll go to the manager. Rodney?
All right, in manager reports, you have the Garner info in your packet, building and permitting report also. And then note in front of you a spreadsheet with yellow lines on it, yellow bars and some red markings. That's your capital project update that the engineering department has been producing. That gives you an update on town projects and the projects within town. And you can see that the red writing are the items that have been updated and ongoing. So take a look at that. You had a copy inside your packet, but it was too small to read, so we provided another.
Yeah, this is challenging enough to read. That was real challenging to read.
It's a lot of information, and this is pretty much the biggest sheet of paper we have.
If council would like us to, we can email this separately as an attachment. We just need to know if that's an effective way for you to receive a separate document to be able to reference. But if it is, we'll be glad to email it.
On your tab.
I like these when you have them here at the table for us, because I can stick it in here and always reference it, and you got bigger paper in your printer than I do.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
And there's a front and back to that. Just some reminders, Connect Conference, Chamber Connect Conference is coming up on August the 15th. I know there's gonna have some speakers and also include a bus tour with that. Pop-up market, July the 28th. I think, Mari, that starts at noon, all right, on the 28th. And then I'm gonna turn to Mr. Hodges to give us an update on the New Bethel Bridge and where that stands right now.
Yes, sir. I believe it was Mr. Vance that inquired about that bridge status at a previous meeting. Staff did check in with North Carolina DOT, and they did find, as you will see on this report, it is one of the projects listed there, that they actually awarded that project back in 2018, but have not been able to start work on it because of what we've determined was utility relocation challenges. So we don't know exactly what the holdup has been with that, but we do know that Pike, the contractor for Duke Energy, was on the site last week doing some preliminary work, and staff was contacted today by DOT to work out some coordination with water connections, and so we believe that things are moving forward, and then we'll hopefully get an updated date for construction once they get the utility conflicts worked out. But there is progress that hopefully, if you've been by there, you've noticed some work happening.
Anything else, Rodney?
That's it for manager reports.
Mr. Attorney?
Sure, I can recite the statutes now for the closed sections if you want to, and that's all.
Going to have council reports.
Well, the attorney on my agenda, the attorney comes before council. Do they know he want to? All right, let's have the council first, then we'll do attorney. We'll start with Mr. Vance.
Council reports, just I have a question in reference to the status of the public facility naming process. Can you update it?
Right, that process is moving forward, and Mr. Roy Lance has been in contact with the resident that, I guess, initiated some of that process and wanting to name a park after Mr. Johns, and he can give you an update on where we stand in his conversation with the resident, Ms. Hinton.
Yeah, she and I actually spoke yesterday, and she gave me an update that she is working through the procedure that we outlined and the policy that you approved, where she would need to outline the name that's being proposed, show community support from the family, the criteria that we had listed before. She has been working in the community, has a petition or a list of signatures of people indicating their support. She said there'd be quite a large number. Of course, you would expect there'd be plenty of people that would want to support something in memory of Mr. Johns, and she is currently working towards bringing that to the having it ready for the August 5th meeting. I think she would love to have. I think she is aware that it's not necessarily something that you all are going to be in a position to decide immediately, and this is the first time that we've had something come through under this policy. But she does have an event planned at that park on September 7th, and so I think she was thinking that it would be great if there was some ability to announce something in time for that event. So anyway, that's the information that I've got at this point. But we have been in touch, and I'll be back in touch to try to get some information from her so that I can share it with you all as soon as it's ready, so that you'll have that.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Hodges in reference to the utilities piece. I understand that utilities can be a difficult part of the road process when it comes to moving of those utilities. And what I would like to recommend as we go forward with looking at the plan for Jones Sausage Road, that we look at utilities early.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I recommend.
Yes, sir.
All I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Kathy.
Yes, sir. I had a comment today from a citizen about the clearing of the land on Minglewood Drive over there by Lowe's, distress over all the trees being taken down and so forth and so on, and wanting to know why we allowed that to happen. My response was that it met the conditions of the zoning, and so I just wanted to bring that to council's attention. And will there be buffers and plantings going back in, and do we know to what extent as far as protecting the barrier between the neighborhoods?
Yes, ma'am, all that's been approved, and we approved the plans.
Well, that was what I thought, but where do I need to, whom do I need to direct them to for more information? To you, Jeff?
I would say the planning department.
All right, okay.
They can have a look at the special use permit, conditional use permit that was approved and what conditions are in there.
Okay.
And that should already be posted online, or at least in our minutes.
All right, well, I assured this person that it would not have been happening if approval hadn't been given, and if there weren't measures in place to meet all the conditions necessary, but they still were very upset about all the land being cleared.
I'm really surprised at it's how good looking the buffer is that was left. That's a lot better than what I anticipated it being.
We have to remember that when the village was built, the same thing happened.
Right.
I mean, most of those trees, because that used to be a horse farm years ago, were just loblolly pines. This was not some substantial hardwood forest. It was just a lot of tall, straight hardwood pines, So, again, when the village was built, the same thing was done. And all those site plan, you gotta remember when there weren't trees on it when it was a horse farm. So.
Okay. All right, I have a couple other things. I'm wondering if Public Works has a regular schedule for picking up trash on Garner Road, and if not, can we get one implemented? I've noticed lately that the trash receptacles that are on the power poles are left full a lot, and I'm having a lot of issues with trash on the road. I turned in a report to the manager last week, empty beer bottles, sponges laying on the sidewalk. One point, there were so many grass clippings in the storm drain that the water couldn't drain into it. So I don't know if it's a complaint-only basis, but it happens often enough that I think we need a regular routine. That road is going to be traveled. It's already a main artery, and it's going to be traveled more and more and more once Amazon comes on board. So I think we'd like to get in on the front end of that instead of the back end as far as regular maintenance of Garner Road. And it happens up near the downtown area, but it's also happening in the area where the new townhouses are being built and where the Jurgen Park is.
I know they service those at least weekly, but we'll look at seeing if there needs to be.
The last time around, it was 2 or 3 weeks that trash was up there, and it was around the 4th of July. So that was bad. And the last thing, which is the most distressing thing, is that I was contacted today about some neo-Nazi signage on 401 South. And the question was, is that allowable? Individual that I was contacted by is Jewish and expressed some fear.
Do you have a location, Ms. Behringer?
401 South is all I know. I don't even know exactly where on 401, but 401 South. Is that allowable? That is
Well, likely regardless of the content first, we'd have to see if it meets our sign ordinance. Content, that might be a whole different
The
element.
content can be examined and considered. I mean, there has to be a limit somewhere.
I'm a defer to the town attorney
Tell you
on
what,
that.
let us, can we look at it and find out where it is, get some pictures, and get back to you on this? This is a subject that I could talk about for about 40 minutes and still not shed a lot of light on it, because the way the law is right now on content of signage, it's really difficult. So let us, can we get back to you on this at the next meeting and see about that sign, see what it is?
I would prefer hearing something earlier if I could. I realize that you have to have time to investigate it, but as quickly as I can get some kind of feedback to reassure this
I'll do
person.
that.
We'll look forward, and if you happen to speak to that person and they have any additional details about where it is, that would be very helpful so that we could try to locate it.
That's all.
Ken, I'm deferring to others. I don't have anything to see. Gray?
I want to start off by thanking the staff and all the employees for the July 3rd celebration. That takes a lot of work, coordination. Police, Public Works, Parks and Rec, administration, engineering, I'm leaving somebody out. All the departments, I'll make sure I cover my bases. But I know they're the ones that put so much time and effort in, so I appreciate all the work put in by everyone. I think it was very successful. I think people enjoyed it. It was a little warm that day, but it was better than having the thunderstorms that happened the next day. So we got lucky on the 3rd again. I want to mention a couple highlights on the updated quarterly update on capital projects, particular sidewalk projects. The Spring Drive, Van Dorn Springs Road project, according to this, is advertising for bids. Contract should be awarded hopefully sometime next month in August. That is the sidewalk which will run from Spring Drive, where it ends at the school property, all the way to Van Dorn, and then the widening of Van Dorn Springs Road on the east side. Curb and gutter, and then the sidewalks which will connect the huge loop over to the roads over there. So that's one project that's moving forward. The Van Dorn Springs to Tiffany Circle sidewalk, curb and gutter on both sides of the road. They're still doing, I think, waiting for some information on the Clomar study, but it's just hopefully that will advertise for bid sometime later this summer, maybe award that contract sometime in the fall, and they can start construction next spring. And then the Timber Drive connectors, which we just had some a vote on recently. They hope to, again on that, advertise for bids in the fall, and those are the connectors on Timber Drive on the south side from Blanton Street all the way down to Woods Creek up to Stowe Place, and then the other side that runs where the Lowe's Shopping Center is at Hearth Drive all the way to where the sidewalk ends near the post office. So you'll be able to walk on that side of the road from the fire station all the way to White Oak, all the way to the apartments if you want to. On the other side of the road, you can go the whole way and go into Raleigh. So anyway, those 3 sidewalk projects are moving forward. It's taking some time, but they are moving forward. So just an update for the public on those. That's all.
Aversboro Road, I'd mentioned it a couple of weeks ago about the pavement cut down by the Heather Hills Clubhouse. Is that going to be a responsibility of DOT to repair that? Because it's getting deeper. It's not like the bridge, but that's a main thoroughfare, and that patch job just didn't work.
Is that the patch you mentioned before that's at the townhomes that are being built?
This is
Okay.
this is one up there right by the pool where you go in the medical office. They cut out a huge square. I don't know if it was the deal with the utilities with across the new utility, the new veterinarian. I don't know if it was done, but I assume it was something with that. But
There's a narrow strip in the right-hand outside lane that it's just sunk. I'm guessing it's got to be DOT, but I don't know how to move that ball down the road.
I think we may have misunderstood your location previously, and we're looking at the ones by the townhome. So, and that had gotten some fix there. So
No, I thought I'd mentioned about Heather Hills Clubhouse to begin with.
you may have, and we may have misunderstood, but we'll make sure we follow up with that one. See who that one was done by.
Just for the record, in the building report, there's 42 new building permits, 31 of which were residences. In the construction report that was handed out to us, it's not a new number, it's been there, but I bring it to our attention that the project cost now for the rec center is at $10.6 million. It was originally, I think we approved at 8.9, or was I way off by that? And can anybody just remind us what were the big ticket items that moved it $1.5 million?
Mr. Kennedy, I'd have to defer to Mr. Johnson who put this together. I believe that that number is inclusive of all the roadway projects and all the things that we bid together. So I'm not sure if that's reflective of anything that's been added to it or not, but I don't have detail of the makeup of that number tonight.
It's just curiosity. I mean, I don't question its validity. It was just a surprise because I don't remember all of the amendments, but I just remember when we bid it and put the project together or put the budget together, I thought it was just slightly under 9 million. I'll leave that alone. I see what it says on here about New Rand Road is summer of 19 to advertise. Does anybody have a specific date as to when we might advertise?
No, sir, I do not have a specific date of when we're going to advertise that. I believe, Mr. Anderson, I believe that all the right-of-way acquisition for New Rand is complete enough that we can move forward on that. So we'll get an updated date from Mr. Johnson when he returns and let you know that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
On September 26th, this is Thursday night, I am feeding the folks who live downtown, and more especially those who run businesses downtown, hamburgers and hot dogs. Be there or be square.
September 26th?
Yes, sir. And it's an effort.
I love hot dogs.
It's an effort to bring them together because some of them on one end, I understand Kathy may know more than I do, but some of them on one end don't even associate with the other end, do they? Some of the people who live downtown don't know or associate with the people who live on the other end.
Oh, right, right.
Just an effort to bring them together. Okay, we got it.
In closed session?
Closed session per the statutes getting ready to be stated by the attorney.
143, 318, 11A, 3 and 5, litigation and real estate.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We good to go? The council met with the attorney regarding 2 legal issues. No action was taken, Mr. Mayor. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.